Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. My best friend cheated on her boyfriend last weekend, and I think I need to tell him, plus updates. I've been struggling with this all week, and I really need an outside perspective before I do something that I can't take back. My best friend and I have been inseparable for over a decade. We met when we were teenagers, and she's been like family to me ever since. I know her boyfriend just as well since they've been together for 8 years and they have 2 kids together. To give you an idea of how close we all are, he calls me his little sister and has always looked out for me, especially during a rough period when I had a stalker ex. So when I say this feels like family business, I mean it. Last weekend, we had what was supposed to be a normal girls' night. She texted me earlier in the week saying she needed to get out of the house, that things with her boyfriend had been tense lately and she wanted to dance and let loose. I figured it was just stress, so I agreed. We went downtown to a bar lounge, had some drinks, and at first it was all fun. But then she started getting very flirty with this random guy. I thought it was harmless until she pulled me aside and told me she was planning to break up with her boyfriend soon. She said she wanted one last night of freedom. I told her to slow down, to think about her kids, to think about her relationship. But she brushed me off. Before I knew it, she was kissing the guy, then she disappeared with him. I left shortly after, feeling sick about what had just happened. Since then, she's told me she has no plans to tell her boyfriend. In fact, she swore me to secrecy, saying she would take it to the grave. She said if he ever found out, she'd know that it came from me. The thing is, she's been cheated on before, and I remember how broken she was when that happened. It feels incredibly wrong to let her boyfriend live in the dark, especially when he's been nothing but supportive of her and of me. He deserves the truth, and my conscience won't let me sit quietly while she pretends like nothing happened. But I know if I tell him, it will end my friendship with her. She'll see it as a betrayal no matter how I explain it. Part of me feels like I'd be stepping into business that's not mine, and that I'd be blowing up their family. The other part of me feels like she already did that, and I'm just holding the matches. I'm torn between loyalty to my best friend and loyalty to what I know is right. Tonight, I'm leaning toward calling him and telling him everything. I even want to give her one last chance to tell him herself before I do. So, would I be the jerk if I went through with this? Weren't you two in public where anyone could have seen her flirting with guys? One of her boyfriend's friends could have easily been at the bar. Honestly, I'd have a really hard time keeping quiet in your position. But at the same time, I don't think I'd want to be in the middle of it. You should definitely give her the opportunity to tell him herself at the very least, and discuss what that timeline may look like before giving any ultimatums to her. If they have kids, she may not be able to have this discussion on a weeknight. People work, they have responsibilities, and they don't want to be crying or fighting in front of their kids. This is the kind of conversation that may need a safe space or even a counselor. The truth does usually come out. And if your friend has any decency, it'll eat her alive. But you also have to think about what kind of person you want in your life. You should probably end your friendship anyway. Cheating on a long-term partner and father of her children says a lot about her character. The fact that she tried to dump the responsibility on you just makes it worse. If she's willing to betray him, she's capable of betraying you. Update. I ended up following through. On Friday, I called my best friend and told her I couldn't keep this secret. I explained that my conscience wouldn't allow me to sit on information that her boyfriend deserved to know. I reminded her that both of us have been cheated on before and we know the pain of it. I told her it would mean more coming from her directly and that it might give them a chance to work through it. I even offered to take her kids out for the afternoon so she could have privacy to tell him. She exploded. She told me it was none of my business, that I was just trying to ruin her relationship. She warned me that if I told him, she would never forgive me. I told her forgiveness was not what I was after, and that I wasn't the one ruining her relationship. She was. She eventually calmed down enough to say that she would tell him after the kids went to bed. The next morning, I texted to ask how it went. She left me on read. Later in the day, I checked again and found that I was blocked. That was my answer. So that evening, I FaceTimed her boyfriend. I told him everything. At first, he thought I was making it up, but then I showed him a picture I had from that night. It wasn't incriminating, but it was enough to confirm she wasn't where she claimed to be. His face fell, and he just thanked me quietly. He said he was going to get tested. I haven't heard directly from him since, but one of our mutual friends reached out later. She said that after my call, he confronted my best friend, and it came out that this wasn't even the first time. She admitted that she had been unfaithful earlier in their relationship too. For him, this was the final straw. They agreed to split. He will have partial custody, and she will move out once she can afford her own place. As for me, my friendship with her is obviously over. She's been sending me spam calls and angry messages from random numbers, which is something she's done to other people in the past. I expected fallout, but I don't regret it. I couldn't live with myself if I had let him keep building a life on lies. Classic traits of a cheater. They place blame on everyone but themselves. You gave her a chance to do the right thing, and she didn't. Her actions are the reason her relationship ended, not yours. Not the jerk. You did the right thing. People can debate timing or delivery, but the truth is always better than living in the dark. He deserved to know, and now he can make decisions for his future with all the information. I actually disagree with a lot of people here. You did what you thought was right, and maybe it was. But I've seen relationships where outside interference, even with good intentions, made things worse. If she was going to come clean eventually, maybe you robbed them of that chance to work it out on their own terms. Either way, this will follow both of them for a long time. So the best friend cheats, swears she'll take it to the grave, and then gets furious when someone refuses to help her bury the secret? Classic. It's like robbing a bank and then getting mad at your getaway driver for refusing to speed. And then blocking the one person who is actually trying to give her a chance to do the right thing. My favorite part is her little revenge campaign with spam calls and angry texts. That's not intimidating. That's just free trial subscriptions to patience. If you don't want your dirty laundry aired, maybe don't leave your friends holding the hamper. Am I the jerk for not using my legal last name because my mom changed it when she married my stepfather? When I was little, my dad passed away. I was 5 and my sister was 2. To be honest, my dad wasn't a good person. I'm not sad he's gone, and neither is anyone else in his family. His own parents and siblings said he wasn't great. But his family has always been incredible to my sister and me. After my dad died, my mom needed time to get herself together, so we lived with our grandparents for a couple of months. They were the ones who babysat us, fed us, tucked us in. They're a huge part of why we had any sense of normalcy. 2 years later, Mom remarried. She was happy, and I really did want her to be happy. But when she and my stepdad decided to change our last names to his, that's when things started to go bad between us. Mom told me one night in the kitchen that it would be better if we were one family with one name. I told her I wanted to keep my dad's name, not for him, but for my grandma and grandpa. She brushed me off, said it would hurt my stepdad's feelings if we didn't take his name. I even asked my stepdad directly. He said he didn't understand why I'd want to keep the name of my father, but he'd be willing to adopt me if that would make it easier. I told him no. It was never about my dad. It was about the family who raised us when things were rough. He just nodded, looked frustrated, and the conversation ended there. I thought maybe that was the end of it, that they'd let me keep my name. I came home from school a few weeks later, and Mom was literally cheering that our names were officially changed. She told me I'd now be called by my new last name at school, the doctor's office, everywhere. It was jarring. I tried telling people to still call me by my old last name, but it only worked for friends. Teachers and doctors had to use what was legal. Eventually, I made a deal with teachers. They could use my chosen name casually, but my report cards and conferences would still have the new one. Mom and my stepdad hated that my friends still called me by my old last name. They tried to correct them in front of me, and it made things awkward. When my sister got older and started school, she followed my lead and used our old name with friends. That made Mom and my stepdad furious. They said she was too young to care and was just copying me. Fast forward to now. I'm 17, less than a year away from being an adult. I still use my old name everywhere I can. My grandparents know I plan to legally change it back once I turn 18, and they've even offered to pay for it. Mom found out a month ago and flipped. She told my stepdad, and suddenly this turned into a family crisis. They sat me down in the living room and said I was disrespecting them. They said I was being a bad influence on my sister, teaching her to treat the man who stepped us like trash. I told them straight up that they forced me into this name when I was a kid. They can't force me to keep it now. That's when my stepdad lost it. He said it was important to him that I carry his name, that I'm his son and the one who will pass the name down. He said if I change it back, he won't see me as his son anymore. That hit me hard, but I told him the truth. The name was never about him or my father. It was about my grandparents and what they mean to me. He told me he's done everything my grandparents did for me and more, and that if I go through with this, it proves I never appreciated him. He said he always felt like I resented him. I didn't even deny it. I told him I did resent him for forcing this on me, for acting like loving my grandparents somehow meant I was rejecting him. I told him he made it worse by not letting me choose. He told me he should have been enough for me and that he had a lot to offer too. Mom just sat there with her arms crossed and told me I was being childish and should at least respect my legal name while it's still legal. So now the house is tense. My stepdad barely talks to me. My mom acts like I'm betraying her. My sister is mad at them too because she doesn't want to be stuck with the name either. I'm still planning to change it the second I turn 18, but part of me wonders if I'm making things worse. Would it really be so bad to just keep the name and avoid the drama? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your mom and stepdad are being unreasonable and acting like this name thing is about them when it's about you. It's your name, not theirs. You've been clear since you were a kid that you wanted to keep the connection to your grandparents and they ignored you. You're almost 18. They can't force you anymore. Change it back. Honor the people who are there for you and let your sister see that it's okay to choose her own identity too. My son asked me something similar when he was a teenager. He wanted to know why we never changed his surname to match mine and his stepdad's. I told him, it's your name. You can change it if you want when you're an adult. It's not my decision to make for you. A name doesn't make a family. Love and respect do. He ended up legally changing his first name, which he hated, when he turned 18, and honestly, it was the best thing for him. He felt like he was finally in control of something important to him. Your mom and stepdad should respect that this isn't about rejecting them, it's about claiming who you are. You're the jerk. Not for wanting to honor your grandparents, that's fine, but for stirring up drama over it and disrespecting the man who has actually raised you for years. You said your grandparents only had to care for you and your sister for months. Your stepdad offered to adopt you, gave you his name, and tried to build a family with you. Instead of appreciating that, you've spent years rebelling and influencing your little sister to do the same. You're not 5 anymore. At some point, you have to stop acting like a victim and start being part of the family you have. Kids today don't realize how lucky they are to have someone step up. Gee, that's a lot of drama for a name. Yep, but apparently it's a hill worth dying on. Must be a tall hill. Yeah, they've been climbing it since he was 5. Revenge on my Karen coworker. I used to work in a production office across town. We were the casual side of the company. Practical clothes, a bit of joking around, everyone knew each other. But we had one coworker who seemed to think her job title was office sheriff or something. Her name was Karen. Yes, really. And she acted exactly how you'd expect. Karen was obsessed with rules. Not in a helpful way, but in a let me watch over your shoulder and write you up for breathing too loud kind of way. She would yell at people for forgetting to print double-sided, report anyone who dared make a personal copy, and give you a lecture if you grabbed too many paper clips. Oh, everyone called her the printer police too, because she treated the copy machine like it was government property. Now, our company had 2 locations, the corporate headquarters and our production office. Sometimes people from corporate would come over and work in spare cubicles. Most of the time it wasn't an issue. But Karen didn't like strangers in her office. She would march around trying to figure out who they were and what they were doing, as if she were the gatekeeper. One week, our IT department had to be on site with us because they were running major systems upgrades. We had a couple of them set up in our cubicles, quietly working. One of them was the head of IT, a guy I knew pretty well because we'd worked together on a few projects and grabbed lunch a few times. At one point, he was sitting at his desk with the weather pulled up on his computer. Big storms were rolling in that day, and checking the weather was completely allowed because it was considered a safety concern. But Karen didn't care. She walked right behind him, saw his screen, and decided this was her moment. She told him he shouldn't be wasting company time and that the intranet was not for personal use. He just nodded, didn't argue, and let her walk away feeling triumphant. Later, during a break, he came over to my desk and told me about it. He was half amused, half baffled, and asked me if she was always like that. I laughed and told him, "Yup, that's our office Karen. She keeps us all on our toes." I explained how she spent most of her day correcting people for little things, tattling to management, and generally making everyone miserable. He just shook his head and smiled, the kind of smile that said he had an idea. A couple of days later, he came by again, this time grinning. "I checked her internet history," he said quietly. Turns out, Karen had been shopping online nearly every single day, often for hours. Clothes, shoes, kitchen gadgets, you name it. She'd basically been running a personal shopping spree on company time. The kicker? Right after lecturing him about wasting time, she had gone back to her office and bought herself a blouse. He didn't confront her directly. Instead, he compiled the data and reported her to HR for misuse of company resources. A week later, word spread that Karen had been called into a meeting with HR and upper management. An hour after that, we watched as security walked her out of the building carrying a box of her things. The office felt lighter after that. No more printer policing. No more lectures about paper clips. If Karen had just minded her own business that day, the head of IT never would have looked twice at her browsing habits. It was the most satisfying, quiet revenge I've ever seen at work. Back in the early 2000s, I worked at a call center where we had one shared computer for our team. It kept running painfully slow, so I did a little digging and I found out someone was streaming movies all day. I reported it to IT and they traced it to a supervisor who spent half her shift watching soap operas. She was walked out the next morning. Ever since then, I never assume my work computer is private. I used to work for a hospital lab where only one computer had internet access. One night shift tech thought nobody would notice and started downloading massive files and streaming videos, which slowed the whole system down. The lab system started crashing constantly until IT locked everything down with passwords and blocked non-work sites. People forget that IT sees everything. Imagine getting caught by the head of IT of all people. Yeah, that's like lecturing a cop about speeding while you're parked on the sidewalk. Bold move for someone shopping on company Wi-Fi. Yep, she basically handed them the keys to her own firing. Fire her? Okay, you sure about that? I don't live in the US, but once or twice a year I fly over for work conferences. Most of the time my schedule is packed with meetings and presentations, so any chance I get to sneak out for a coffee or a snack feels like a mini vacation. On one of these trips, I slipped out of the conference center during a break and wandered into a little convenience store nearby. I figured I'd grab something quick and headed back, but I ended up standing in front of this massive wall of snacks, just amazed. Compared to what I'm used to at home, the sheer variety was almost overwhelming. I was trying to decide between several equally questionable flavors of chips when I noticed some raised voices at the other end of the aisle. At first, I didn't pay much attention. People bicker in stores all the time, right? But then I glanced over and realized it wasn't two customers. It was a woman absolutely tearing into the young cashier. The poor girl looked terrified, like she wanted to shrink into the shelves behind her. She couldn't have been more than a college student working a part-time job, and she was on the verge of tears. The customer, though, well, let's just say she had a presence. Loud, wheezy voice, dramatic hand gestures, and this air of entitlement that made it clear she was used to getting her way. She reminded me of a sitcom character who had wandered into the wrong scene, only much less funny. In my head, I instantly nicknamed her Wheezy. Unfortunately for me, I stood out. I was in a business suit with my conference badge on the lanyard, and I just happened to be carrying a clipboard. To Wheezy, that was all the proof she needed that I must be some kind of a manager. She stomped over to me, pointed at the cashier, and demanded, "I want her fired. She was rude to me, and she's useless at her job." Now, it took a lot of imagination to believe that shy girl had been rude to anyone, but clearly Wheezy wasn't operating on logic. And right there, an idea popped into my head. If she thought I was management, then maybe I could use that. So, without saying much at first, I lifted my clipboard and began scribbling furiously. She frowned and asked, "What are you doing?" I kept my expression serious and told her, "These matters must be handled properly. Please give me a moment." That threw her off just enough. I tore off the page, walked over to the cashier, and quietly handed it to her. I had written, I don't work here. Get the manager. This might get ugly." The girl's eyes widened, but she didn't need to be told twice. She bolted, probably relieved to have an excuse to escape. That left me uneasy. I turned back to her and asked, "All right, your name and address, please." Wheezy, "Why do you need that?" Me, "Surely you know that if you get someone fired, you're responsible for the cost of hiring and training their replacement." I leaned in slightly, lowered my voice, and added, "It's the law." Now, in truth, I had no plan for what would happen after that, but I didn't need one. The moment those words landed, I could practically see the gears grinding in her head. The idea that she might be financially responsible completely shut her down. She stammered something, spun on her heel, and stormed out of the store, moving surprisingly fast for someone with such a dramatic waddle. As for the cashier, I never saw her again. By the time I left, she was still in the back, probably with her actual manager. Hopefully she realized that not everyone was against her that day. And honestly, watching Wheezy storm off after being outsmarted was the most satisfying part of my entire trip. This is exactly how fake laws get legs. In a few years, some cousin at Thanksgiving is going to swear up and down that their friend's uncle had to pay 10 grand after getting a cashier fired. And we'll all just nod because arguing isn't worth it. My daughter's friend stole a $5,000 watch from my husband, and we don't know how to tell her parents. Our daughter, who's 18, has been friends with another girl who's also 18 for about 9 months now. And in the last few months, she started inviting her to our house more often because they're classmates and sometimes they have projects to work on together. Last week, she came to our house, and my husband, who's 56, was assisting them with a project since they're studying the same subject he once did. At one point, my youngest daughter returned home with her friends, so my eldest daughter and her friend went to my husband's office. According to him, he had taken off his watch and left it on his desk, and our daughter saw it there, confirming his account. However, when her friend left, the watch was gone. After searching for it throughout the house, I, 36 female, decided to check the security cameras. They revealed that she took the watch when she was left alone in the office for less than 5 seconds. To my surprise, my daughter wasn't shocked because according to her, this is the 3rd time valuable items have gone missing from our house. The first 2 times, she stole a pair of gold earrings and a gold necklace from my daughter. Initially, we thought they were misplaced as my daughter tends to lose things frequently. However, my daughter is certain that her necklace and earrings were in her jewelry box and her friend took them. Now my husband and I are unsure about whether to inform her parents. She has taken a significant amount of money from our home, nearly $6,000, which is unjust. Nevertheless, since she is young and in college, we want to give her another chance. That's why we've decided not to involve the police and instead wish to discuss the situation with her parents. How can we approach her parents without causing offense? We believe it's essential to recover our stolen items and help her address her underlying issues. Please keep in mind that the decision to not involve the police is based on her academic situation, as we don't want to jeopardize her education. We want to reach out to her parents because she still lives with them and they are financially responsible for her. If you have actual video proof of the watch being taken, that should diffuse any awkwardness of the conversation. They won't really have a leg to stand on in terms of just being defensively, "You're accusing my kid of something you lost." Being pointed about the fact that you are coming to them first, especially because she's 18, permanent record will be hit, should get them to accommodate getting your things back. If they're a family of scumbags and don't care, then police will be the only path you can take. Edit. I know as far as how they punish or parent to set their kids straight, you really won't and can't have any hope or influence over that, so remove that. This has to be about getting your stuff back. Maybe you will learn from how the parents react, how they plan to address, but that's as far as you can hope. OP should not confront the parents. They should call the cops, show them the evidence, and then invite the parents over, or have a lawyer present for the conversation. Some third party with a responsibility to the court so that the other parents understand the gravity of the situation and don't try to turn it around and claim harassment. The friendship with those parents is likely already done for. There's no way to rescue the relationship if they're not already taking steps to manage their kids' issues. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you talk to her parents or the police? Please let us know. I'd tell her straight up, "Look, we have video camera footage of you stealing our stuff. You either give it back or we're calling the cops." Then, whether she gives it back or not, I'd still tell her parents about it too. She's a scumbag. Oh, you know how Reddit is, Karen. It's not her fault that she's acting out this way. We need to get to the underlying issue. Don't start with me, Reddit boy. You know how much I despise these people. My husband, 42 male, just admitted to having an affair and getting someone else pregnant. My husband and I got married 3 years ago. When I was a teenager, I was told that due to medical complications, I may never be able to have kids. But after 2 years of trying and fertility treatments, I'm now halfway through my pregnancy with our miracle baby. Unfortunately, because of some complications, I had to cut back on my hours at work. It's very physical. My husband offered to pick up more hours to compensate, so he's been working a lot more in the past 2 months and coming home later. I couldn't see that anything was amiss. Things were the same as they'd always been. He always brings home flowers, food, things for the baby, coffee. He's always sending me thoughtful and loving texts throughout the day. The gaps where he was unreachable were explainable. But this morning he sat me down and gave me news that rocked me. He told me he's been having an affair for the past 6 weeks and that his affair partner just found out that she's pregnant. He says that if she decides to keep the baby, she's going to raise it by herself and that they mutually agreed to end the relationship already. He wants to make things right. I don't know how things can ever be made right again. He just wants to move on from this, what he's calling his transgression. How do I ever forgive him? How do you deal with the unthinkable? How do I learn to live with the idea that my kid's sibling might be out there somewhere someday? Most importantly, how do I learn to move on like he wants me to? Edit. I have an OB appointment for unrelated medical reasons tomorrow, at which I will make sure to request extensive testing. I have plans to meet with a lawyer on Monday. I'm talking to my sister to see if I can stay with her. My relationships with much of my family are not good, but I have a pretty positive relationship with her. I will not be seeking other options other than having my baby due to being pretty far along and having been told in the past I would not conceive. Regardless of what my husband has done, I love my baby. Edit 2. I saw my OB on Friday and will hopefully have some results soon. Fingers crossed for all negative, within the next few days. I'll meet the lawyer tomorrow and go from there. My sister advised me to stay in the house that my husband and I co-own until I talk to a lawyer. This has been such an emotionally harrowing time for me. He's acting like everything is normal. All I want to do is sleep. I keep telling myself that it'll be over soon. It sounds like he has no remorse, and the only reason the affair ended was because she got pregnant. How could you possibly trust a man like him? It sounds like he is minimizing his affair. If she keeps the baby and they still work together, I highly doubt he will completely cut things off. She'll be in his life from now on. Are you okay with that? Personally, the baby would get my maiden name and I'd serve him with divorce papers and child support. My dad is pretending I'm not getting married. So my dad has always been a very show-off type of person. Announcements about grades, telling everyone how great his daughters are doing, telling off my sister for having a job he can't show off. When he divorced from my mom, he was a good parent for a while, and then he met Eva. Eva is way younger, has had a lot of work done, and used to send him flirty messages when he was still married. They got married very early on in the relationship because they've known each other ages. She told him not to text us too much because we're adults. She texts his phone all the time. She forbade him from seeing us Christmas Day or St. Stephen's Day because he needed to be with his new family, and it would have been disrespectful to her for him to see his ex-wife, and she's overall been an absolute nightmare. And he follows everything she tells him to do. Now I'm getting married and told my dad he's invited, but she's not. I've met the woman once and I don't like her. Plus, I know my father isn't a great person and he'd be making jabs at my mom about being older than Eva, etc. To make it fair, my mom's boyfriend is also not invited, although he's a sweetheart. My dad's answer to my invite has been to pretend nothing is happening. I sent him a save the date and he sent me a thumbs up emoji. He hasn't asked me once about the wedding, not even the venue, even though he told me shortly before meeting Eva that he was looking forward to me and my sister getting married and how excited he was. Myself and my fiance are different religions and cultures, so everyone's had lots of questions about how we're handling that. Turns out he hasn't told Eva I'm getting married and he hasn't told anyone else, so he's just planning to say he has a work trip and come to the wedding. I don't actually think he's going to show up. I think he'll say he is going to and then not show at the last minute. But my sister thinks he'll show up with her and make a whole scene because he told her Eva has just as much a right to be there as your mom. Anyone else dealt with something similar? Do I need to back up to walk me down the aisle? Why isn't my mom's boyfriend invited? My dad will for sure not show up if I invite my mom's boyfriend and not his wife. My mom understands that even though my dad is not the best dad ever, I still want him there. They haven't been together that long, so she's okay with her boyfriend staying at home. Plus, then he can stay with the dogs and she doesn't have to worry about getting a dog sitter. Most of the family is going as well, so there's nobody to look after them. Update. So it turns out my dad ended up telling Eva about my wedding and telling her that she was invited to the wedding to avoid problems. She got herself a dress, booked a hotel, etc. My dad tried to convince me to invite her, but his biggest selling point was that he thought it would be an amazing time to introduce Eva to my mom and my mom's whole family. Why he would think my mom wants to meet her is beyond me, and that she would feel excluded otherwise. He always rubs in our faces his new family, even calling it his new family. Keeps canceling every dinner he sets up with my sister due to some emergency involving Eva, or tells us to call Eva Mom. Both me and my sister are way beyond the point of calling some random person Mom since we both moved out, and he's being ridiculous. He called me again and again trying to convince me, and I said no, explaining that I knew the only reason he wanted to bring his wife to the wedding was to upset Mom, and that I wasn't going to let the two of them do that. He makes jabs at my mom every time he's around her about how great his new wife is. I thought the whole thing was over until I sent him some information about the wedding, and I guess he started feeling guilty and told us that he booked the flight for Eva as well, and he booked himself on the same flight as my mom. Changed his whole flight plans just so he could be on the flight with her, so that my mom and Eva could still meet. AKA, he could rub his new wife in her face and try and mess with my mom's head by putting her down and making comparisons. And then Eva would just go off and shop while he was at the ceremony. I'm not sure if this is true or if he was going to try and bring her to the wedding and hope that she didn't get kicked out. I'm trying to convince my mom to change her flight so she can't get inside her head 12 hours before the wedding. I don't know if I should uninvite him. It's sad that the situation was unfair from the start. Mom's boyfriend didn't blow up the family. Mom's boyfriend isn't canceling for BS reasons on the sister. Mom's boyfriend isn't a jerk. He should have been invited so he could sit in the middle seat between mom and dad. I genuinely don't understand why you're even still considering to invite him. Well, what do you think? Should OP invite their dad to the wedding or not? Please let us know. I know he's your dad and all, but the guy's I can't say it on here. We're not allowed to say words like that. Am I the jerk for billing my fiance after a prenup request? My fiance and I are high school sweethearts. He lived here about 3.5 years in college, but I left him because the last 2 years he quit his job, complained nonstop about failing classes, but did nothing but sleep and play video games, didn't pay his share of the bills, but expected me to do all of the cleaning and cooking while working 2 jobs and school full-time. Then he was mean to me. Time passes, he went to therapy, graduates, stabilizes, and honestly became such a good man. We reconnect and date again. Life happens and we end up in different cities due to work. We are now engaged. He's more under contract, so it's expected I move with him. He also just bought a house because his mortgage for a 3-bed is cheaper than he was paying for a 1-bedroom apartment. He put $15,000 down. We talked about me paying $900 a month towards bills, which I had no issue with at first. He mentions getting a prenup. This rubs me the wrong way. I understand wanting to protect assets, but we've been together since 15, and well, if we put tally marks next to it, he owes me money. I would have to relocate and find a new job in his town, which the only reason I'd go there for is him. I agreed, but told him we need to settle his debts with me and have an established leasing agreement. This offended and made him super upset. We have a notarized contract because I took out $10,000 in loans after he lost his scholarships and was denied approval. Despite it, I had been paying and never asked for money back before now. His car cost $6,000 and I loaned him $2,500 for it. Never got a dime back. Although he said he would pay it back, I never really pressed it though. I paid almost all the bills for 2 years after he quit his job. I didn't ask for any back, but I sure as heck pointed it out. And I decided that it would only be fair for me to pay for a market room rate. We live in the South, and that's $500 to $650, utilities included. I also started requesting half of the vet bills as kitty support, since one of our cats has diabetes. He's taken the changes as a champ, but I can tell he's super stressed out and sad. He literally makes double what I make at the moment, but I know he never expected or maybe even remembered all the costs that I've bitten for this relationship. I feel guilty because I never committed with expectations of it being returned, so when he suggested it, I don't know why I felt salty. Then I got a list of all my costs, which hurt him, and I don't know. Am I a jerk? Did I take it too far? I think your request was totally reasonable. If he wants a prenup, you need to even the score first. I don't understand how he expects you not to be offended by the prenup while simultaneously being hurt by your requests for what you're owed. Not the jerk, and he has just been using you as an ATM to fund his life. Am I the jerk for not wanting to have lunch on Saturdays with my grandparents anymore? My husband, 23 male, and I, 23 female, moved a few months ago back to the city where I grew up. Specifically, we moved pretty close to my grandparents. My grandparents had been alone for many years since all their kids and grandkids had ended up moving away for different reasons quite far from where they live. So knowing that we were going to move near them was a great joy for them, especially for my grandmother. My grandparents were so excited about it that they asked us to please see each other at least once a week so that they could have regular contact with us. My husband and I work from Monday to Friday, so we decided to dedicate part of our Saturdays to spending time with my grandparents. We talked to them and came to the conclusion that we would spend Saturday mornings with them at their house and have lunch together. My grandmother was fascinated by the idea since she loves to cook. She has always told us how much cooking de-stresses and relaxes her, and how she almost couldn't do it because it was just the two of them, and she hardly needed to cook. We still ask them to please let us know if they needed us to bring the food and or dessert on any Saturday to prevent my grandmother from cooking too much. My grandmother told us that she didn't need us to do that at all, and she asked us not to even mention the fact that we brought food on a Saturday. Despite all this, my grandfather didn't seem to have a problem with this, so we started going to see them every Saturday. The first few months, everything seemed to be going great. We really enjoyed each other's company, and we took the opportunity to help my grandparents with many of their technological problems, such as how to use their smart TV or mobile phones properly. However, as time went by, my grandfather began to make some comments behind my grandmother's back, such as, "It was too much for her to have to cook for 4 people every week," or things like, "We don't have enough money to be buying all this food every week." I have to clarify that my grandparents have a fairly high standard of living and that money is the least of their worries. My husband and I are somewhat ignoring his comments since my grandmother seemed very happy and she always let us know how having us there every Saturday helped her improve a lot with her depression. However, 2 months ago, my grandfather asked us one Saturday afternoon after lunch to go with him to the city center. When we were about to go back to our house, he told us that we couldn't continue like this and that my grandmother was really being affected by our weekly Saturday visit. He basically made us understand that it was our fault that my grandmother was more tired, sad, and depressed, as if my husband and I were being a burden to them. My husband and I told him that we could change our weekly visit to a monthly visit and that we would bring food for everyone. My grandfather asked us to be the ones to tell my grandmother and made us promise to never tell her that he had talked to us about this topic. That same day at night, my grandfather called us and told us to please not stop going every week because my grandmother was going to go into an even greater depression if we stopped going. My husband and I didn't know what to do and began to feel quite uncomfortable about our weekly visits to their house. 3 weeks ago, my grandfather came to our house to talk some things over with us. He told us that he had tried in every way to please everyone, but that it was definitely too much of an expense for them to have us there every Saturday, and that we had to stop going every week. My husband and I agreed in a coordinated manner. After all, we were finally going to be able to have Saturdays free for ourselves, so we didn't give the matter much more thought. On Friday of that same week, my grandparents called me on speaker to ask us what we wanted to eat the next day at their house. I couldn't believe it. I told them in a polite way that we wouldn't be able to go to lunch with them for several weeks, but that we would stop by on Sundays to see them quickly in the morning. When I hung up the phone, I received a message from my grandfather letting me know how disappointed he was in me for making my grandmother feel so bad about our weekly meal at their house. I sent him a voice note telling him that we were going to be busy on Saturdays for real and that I was just doing what he asked of us. My grandfather deleted the message from our conversation on WhatsApp. Since then, 3 weeks ago, we have not gone back to eat at their house again. My parents and my husband say I'm right, but a part of me feels that my grandmother believes that we're the ones who don't want to go and be with them, when in reality, it's my grandfather who forced us to take this step. Am I the jerk? Update. I'm meeting my grandmother tomorrow to talk. I told her I'll take her shopping and we'll go out for breakfast. I'll update you with what happens next. Update 2. I must clarify that I've tried to invite them home several times and my grandfather has refused, giving my grandmother excuses as to why they couldn't come. We've invited them to lunch at our house and even offered to pick them up and take them back home so they wouldn't have to drive. But my grandfather literally told us that he doesn't feel comfortable eating food that isn't made by my grandmother or a restaurant. I should also clarify that I always help my grandmother cook while I'm there. I've tried to bring food twice and it's resulted in great anger from my grandmother. saying that she does not want us to bring anything, and a look of disgust from my grandfather towards the food that we've brought. I know firsthand that his financial situation is good because my grandfather usually asks me for help with his phone, and he almost always leaves his bank application open. So I have perfectly seen the money he has in one of his banks, and it's a lot. Update. Yesterday I went out with my grandmother in the morning. I didn't really know how to approach the subject, but I finally found the time to tell her everything. She didn't believe me at all when I told her. In fact, she told me that she had only agreed to leave the house with me because she thought that my husband and I didn't want to have lunch with them again. We decided to go to my grandparents' house so we could all talk there. Luckily, my grandfather didn't deny anything that happened, but it was evident that he is more than upset with me. My grandmother is very angry with him. I can't help but feel bad thinking that I could be the culprit of that anger. My grandmother spoke clearly to all of us. She let us know that she doesn't enjoy going out that much, and that's why she would prefer for lunches with them to be at her house. She also told us that she doesn't want food or money from us since she only enjoys the simple fact that I help her cook and that we can all enjoy that meal. She told us that she wants those weekly lunches, but that if ever my husband and I can't go, that's okay. She told my grandfather that she felt disappointed with his attitude. Everything seemed to be understood, and my husband and I went home. I called my parents and told them what happened. After talking to them, I'm sure that my grandfather does not have any mental problems or dementia. He's simply a very unfamiliar person who hardly enjoys spending time with his family. He's quite hypocritical and really only cares about himself. My parents have suffered too much from his attitude. They even told me how my grandfather has let my father sleep for 3 days on the street since he wouldn't allow him to enter his house for not cutting his hair like he told him to. My father was 21 at the time. So my grandfather's personality just sucks. I had always known that he was a bit strange. He's always had favorite kids and less than favorite kids, same with his grandkids. My family and I are definitely not one of his favorites. I understand that he's still my grandfather, and I'm not going to cut off my relationship with him because of it, but I'm definitely not going to allow certain attitudes on his part, and even more so after knowing the crap that my parents went through with him. So for now, Saturday lunches will continue to happen every week at my grandmother's request. I know that my grandparents have not spoken to each other since the conversation we had yesterday, so I don't know how long this angry situation between them will last and how long my grandfather's anger towards my husband and me will last. The grandfather sounds like a major piece of work and a miserable person to be around. I do feel bad for the grandmother having to deal with someone like him. Grandpa sounds like a miserable, selfish jerk. Deliberately deplete my prepaid phone balance? You will pay for it 1,000 times over. I went to middle school in the early 2010s, right before smartphones really took off. I got my first phone right before starting 6th grade. It was a slide phone with a pay-as-you-go plan that cost 10 cents per minute for calls and per text message sent or received. Worse yet, sending or receiving photos cost 25 cents each. It was very expensive, and my parents only gave me $100 a year for this. If I exceeded that amount, I had to cover the rest with my limited birthday and Christmas money I had. Fortunately, most of my friends were good about helping me preserve the balance. They would call and I'd let the call drop, but immediately call back on a landline so it wouldn't count as a call. Or they'd email me or message me on Skype for most things. Everything was great until Derek joined the group in 7th grade. At first, we thought he was funny, but we quickly got fed up with him as he was very unpleasant and exhibited many antisocial behaviors. He started drama within the friend group and also caused issues between us and other kids outside of the group. He was manipulative and always played the victim when others rightfully called him out on his BS, and he knew how to charm parents, so getting rid of him was easier said than done. He was the one friend who didn't respect my phone situation. He very frequently texted me dumb memes, even though I told him multiple times to just email or Skype them to me instead, since picture text messages cost 25 cents each. Unfortunately, blocking phone numbers was a feature that was unavailable for this pay-as-you-go plan, so there was nothing I could do as he spammed my phone. One day, he got mad at me for some reason and spammed my phone with memes. He must have sent me over 100 lolcats over text. He kept sending them until I lost service since my phone balance was depleted. I had lost the $40 remaining in my account as a result. I was extremely upset and demanded that he pay me the $40 he had cost me, and he refused and said it wasn't his problem. I got home from school really upset and told my dad about the situation, expecting him to go and tear Derek's mother a new one and demand the money. But my dad said that it wasn't worth the battle. I even asked him about a small claims court, but he said that not all battles are worth fighting and that the effort wasn't worth $40. He took me to the carrier store and loaded $50 onto the phone. The carrier changed my phone number and they managed to block Derek's number. They had initially said that blocking phone numbers wasn't possible with this plan, but my dad insisted and would not leave the store until they did it. I was extremely paranoid about my phone number being leaked and the other kids spamming it to mess with me. Fortunately, my parents got iPhones that summer and got me one too, and the new family plan had an unlimited text plan. Nonetheless, I was ticked about the $40 he essentially stole from me out of malice. Fortunately, not too long after, there was a big blowout between Derek and the rest of the friend group at the end of the school year, and we permanently kicked him out of the group. He was an outcast the following year in 8th grade. Nobody was tolerating his crap anymore, and he changed schools the year after, and we never heard from him again. Fast forward to a few years ago. I was back home for a few months between graduating college and starting a new job on the other side of the country. I went out to some garage sales one Saturday morning, and I ended up at Derek's house. I recognized his mother, but I don't think she recognized me. I guess glasses and a beard is all you need. I noticed some Pokemon napkins out for sale, and when I picked them up to look at them, Derek's mom said that her son had been obsessed with Pokemon for his whole life and that she was tired of Pokemon stuff occupying her home for so many years. I said that these napkins were for my younger cousin who's really into Pokemon, and I asked if she had any more Pokemon stuff. She said she didn't know people were still into that and that there were a few boxes in the attic with her son's old stuff. She actually took me inside the house, which I never imagined I'd set foot inside ever again, and let me climb up the attic ladder and take down several large boxes to look through. The first one had Christmas ornaments in it and other junk, but I freaked out inside when she opened a box jam-packed with Pokemon video games in the original boxes, though I kept my cool on the outside. The whole reason I had agreed to go inside in the first place was because I was holding out in hope of this exact scenario happening. See, I knew Derek was obsessed with Pokemon. Our friend group liked Pokemon back in the day, even when other kids thought it wasn't cool, but Derek was on a whole different level. He bragged about his Pokemon collection all the time. At the time, he had every single main series game in the original box, and in mint condition, as he always had to add in. I went to his house once, and he was showing me his collection. He yelled at me for touching one of the games. Nobody was allowed to touch them except him. He had many older Nintendo games in excellent condition, but Pokemon was his favorite. He had a couple of incidents with his mom damaging or throwing away things. It wasn't out of malice, but just ignorance, and she didn't think the games or collectibles had any value. Fast forward into the present day. I was thinking about this when I asked his mother if she had any other Pokemon stuff. She ended up bringing out the mother load. We opened all the boxes she had me bring down. Within the boxes, there was the beloved collection of Pokemon games, all very well preserved, as well as several Nintendo consoles, hundreds of games, 24 binders full of Pokemon cards, and there was also a box of many Lego sets with the original boxes and everything, and many old Star Wars Lego sets. When I saw Jango Fett, I knew I struck gold. I told her that I liked old Legos as well, and asked her how much for the 5 boxes of games, cards, and Lego sets, and she thought for a second and said $100 a box, or $400 for all 5. I told her I would take it all and hauled off to go to an ATM. I loaded the 5 boxes into my dad's truck and immediately drove home. I knew there were potentially tens of thousands of dollars of goods in there. That was the score of a lifetime, and I finally felt vindicated for the $40 Derek had taken from me all those years ago. I ended up giving away all of this stuff to my uncle, who's a hobbyist and eBay reseller. He offered to sell it all. He was willing to go through the effort and sell everything individually, and despite my insistence, he said he wouldn't take more than a 10% cut of the profits after all fees and taxes. He went through and logged every single item along with the estimated value, and the total of the whole lot was about $40,000. Which was a poetic number since this was 1,000 times the value of what Derek stole from me all those years ago. My uncle sold most of the lot before the end of the summer and ended up writing me a check. Though it was considerably less than $40,000, it was still a life-changing amount of money for me. I was able to pay off my remaining student loans and put the rest towards a down payment on my new car. Homeless Karen demands to live with me. I kicked her out. So I'm 22, female, and my boyfriend who's 24 has this friend, another female who's 25, who moved in 4 months ago because she had nowhere else to go. Now, I didn't mind having her here as long as she respects our boundaries and the rules around the house, but that's definitely not it. She's very loud, comments on everything, and just does inappropriate stuff in general, and excuses it for being a Latina and says that that's just how they are. She doesn't help at all, besides maybe cooking sometimes, but doesn't clean up the mess she makes, and she invites people over whenever she wants. She changes in the living room in front of us, and I asked her to change in her room, but her excuse is that she was trying to feel like home, and then she suggested that I should do it too, as it will strengthen my bond with my boyfriend. I talked to my boyfriend about how I'm kind of uncomfortable with this whole situation, and he told me not to overthink it, and that she's just very unbothered and cool. She always interrupted our time together, and would sit between us during a movie, or take my space while I took a bathroom break, and she cuddles him in the most unfriendly way, and when I asked jokingly if she was trying to take my man, she would excuse it on her ethnicity and say that that's how they grew up, so I knew I had to ruin this Friday night they had for them. I went up to them and she was all over him as usual. I called my boyfriend, and when he was about to get up, she said how it was their favorite part and that he could leave later. I insisted, but she kept pulling him, so I went and pulled him to our room, discussed how what she's doing is really upsetting me and I no longer want her living with us, and he agreed I had the right, but that she has nowhere else to go and that I'll have to wait until she finds a job, which she's not even trying to get. While talking, she came up and tried to open the door, which was locked, so she started knocking and we just ignored her until it got louder, and he asked her to leave, but she got even louder and then started saying that I ruined their only time that she gets to spend with him, which obviously is not the case. I had enough at that point, but my boyfriend suggested he talk to her first, so he went and they took too long, like almost 2 hours. So I went to check on them, and I heard her telling him that he shouldn't accept someone who ruins a friendship as a partner, and that it's a big red flag and that he should kick me out. But this place is actually my property that I inherited from my aunt, and at that point, I knew I had to kick her out. I didn't even ask with what conclusion they came up with and waited in the living room until they came out, and I just told her to look for another place and gave her 2 weeks max. She's been crying since yesterday, refusing to eat and not coming out of the room, and my boyfriend is saying I went overboard and I just hit a sensitive spot of hers, basically telling her to leave when she has no family or anywhere else to go. So, am I the jerk? Update. Thank you everyone for the advice and for helping me open my eyes to the real issue. It was past midnight when I posted that, and my life literally took a 180 in less than 24 hours. It's been overwhelming, and I didn't expect this would reach so many people. The comments were like a slap in the face that I really needed. Apparently, I was too blind. Yeah, I guess my boyfriend isn't who I thought he was. He's been trying to give her food to calm her down, and he literally took a day off from college and work. He goes on Sundays too, which he never did for me, and he never even got days off from his classes unless really necessary with proof. Nursing. I don't know how he managed to get a day off. I really wanted to make sure it was what it looks like before deciding my next move. I prepared lunch way before time and asked him if he was around for lunch, and his response, "I'm trying to get her to have breakfast, and you're talking about lunch. You're becoming unrecognizable." Yeah, I didn't know where to reply, so I just asked again, but he said we can have lunch together if she's willing to join us, as it's rude for us to eat without her. At this point, I felt like crap to be honest, and asked him why she was so important that he canceled all of his plans just to support her emotionally, which he never did when I went through things myself, but he just left like that. I invited my guy friend over, which he doesn't like, and I explained to him our situation and just asked him to be comfortable. I didn't want to do the cuddling stuff like them because we didn't break up yet at that point, and it was weird anyways because we don't usually. My boyfriend never realized someone was over until he came to take food and he saw us having lunch together, and he just gave me a look, said hi, and was going to take some for themselves until he realized it was a creamy rice casserole, which his friend doesn't like, and yeah, I did that on purpose, and chicken roast with some sides, and he literally glared at me and said, "You know she doesn't eat that." And I just replied, "Well, it's not her who I made this for." And then he threw the plate, started shouting, asking what was wrong with me, and that he wished he never dated me. It was so scary, my friend got involved. They got aggressive, and I just asked him to leave with his other girlfriend, which he replied with, "Oh, so you're replacing me that fast?" But I told him that he was the one who had replaced me a long time ago, but I was too dumb to realize. He actually moved in fully when his friend came, and colleges here do provide dorms, but of course it's not like she can live with him, and I couldn't care less anymore. Also, no legal action is required for someone you haven't signed papers with where I live. They were just guests. I packed his things for him, which aren't a lot, and left it by the front door. He came crying and apologizing and acknowledging that what he did was wrong and some other BS I didn't want to hear because the damage was already done. My friend was of great support, and he dealt with everything else as I cried my eyes out in my room. And that sums up how I went through my first heartbreak, and it was my first relationship, and I did love him, but I guess I can watch, eat, and do anything now without catering to anyone's needs. I'm changing the locks tomorrow morning, and we're ordering fried chicken, apparently a proven heartbreak remedy by my friend. And although her excuse was bringing up her race, I know better than that. Thank you all for the support. Not the jerk, but you don't have a homeless friend problem. You've got a boyfriend problem. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you kick out the Karen and your boyfriend or not? Please let us know. Humans never cease to amaze me. Am I the jerk for putting dirty dishes away? So I, 16 female, can admit that when it comes to chores, I've never had too many responsibilities. I have to take the dog out for a minimum of 15 minutes a day, keep my room clean, and put away the dishes. My mom, who's 39, always does the dishes. Recently, my stepdad, who's 42, fixed our dishwasher, and we've been using it instead to make things easier. The first time we used the dishwasher, I started putting things away and found a glass had broken. No big deal. Second time, some of the things had visible food and such still on them. I put them in the sink, assuming they would just get redone, and I'd put them away the next time. I had been doing this for about a week, putting a few utensils, maybe a cup that had visible food, when my mom finally talked to me. She said that I needed to do my chores right and stop putting things in the sink just so I can go back to my phone quicker. I said that the only time I ever put things in the sink was because they were still dirty. She said that was garbage and I needed to stop or else she would take my phone for a bit. The next day, as I was putting away the dishes, I saw some more forks and spatulas were still somewhat dirty, and a mug, my mom's favorite, had some dishwasher gunk inside. Doing as my mom told me, I put everything away. When she came to the kitchen, I sat at the dinner table and watched as she grabbed a spatula and noticed it was dirty, but just sighed and put it in the sink. After she went to grab her mug, when she saw it was full of dishwasher gunk, she looked over to me and asked what I thought I was doing, and I kindly said that I had just put away all of the dishes. She blew up and said that if something was obviously dirty, I should put it in the sink and not put it away. I pointed out the flaws in her argument. After that, she took my phone for the day. I don't think I did anything really wrong, but I want to know, am I the jerk? Edit. I'd like to start off by saying thank you for everyone's input. I do see how most of you see that I'm the jerk, so I'm talking to my mom tomorrow. One thing I will also be doing is telling her that sometimes I would like her to listen to what I'm going to say, even if I am in the wrong. One last thing I would like to mention. I saw a lot of people saying that I was a brat, and I'll be in for a rude awakening when I move out. You are wrong. Sorry, between the ages of 7 and 11, my dad had a horrible girlfriend, and I was doing everything in the house for myself. My dad and his ex, along with his ex's kids. I know how to do these things. They're just not my responsibilities anymore. I'm also at the top of my classes and on track for some great universities and jobs. I am also almost fully done writing a novel I plan to publish before I'm 19. Thank you for listening. Edit 2. So there was a certain comment that you have apparently been downvoting, which I think is terrible, as this person has made me think of the situation and really my whole life in another light. Someone mentioned how they are autistic and sometimes don't understand things right away. I relate to that a lot. And when it comes to me mentioning what happened with my dad and his ex, I never wanted to use that as an excuse. I didn't mean it that way. I was frustrated and annoyed by people saying I'll never amount to anything in life, because that is probably my greatest fear. I honestly don't care if you guys think I'm a jerk or not anymore, as I'm already sorting out the situation with my mom, and everyone calling me horrendous things is just making me really upset. Those of you calling me things and absolutely terrorizing me as a human, you need to grow up. You are an adult who got so annoyed with a teenager having an argument with their mom that you decided to bully her? Grow up. You're the jerk. When you see something like this, you need to hand wash it clean. Long term, you need different dishwasher soap or a better dishwasher if it's not cleaning your dishes properly. If things are coming out dirty, you need to add dishwasher salt and rinse aid to the machine. That's not what your mom wanted and you know it. Stop pretending you don't know what she meant and using weaponized incompetence. By doing the dishes, your mom expects you to clean the dishes and not just wait for someone else to do it for you, then put them away when they're clean and dry. You're the jerk times a million and way too old to behave this way. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mom? Please let us know. Nothing like a little malicious compliance when it comes to your chores. Reminds me of the time my dad told me to cut all of the grass in the backyard. Let's just say he wasn't happy when he saw what it looked like. Karen customer loses it because I won't sell her my purse. So for the last dozen years or so, I've been carrying this vintage designer bag I found online. I think I bought it back in 2010. I love it, and I will carry it until it falls apart. I get a ton of compliments on it, and it's also caused this one crazy story. I spent 3 years working in an Ivy League college town upscale clothing boutique that catered to wealthy college students and their parents and tourists. We didn't sell anything like this bag, but I suppose I can see where it would have fit in with the other things that we did sell. One afternoon, I was getting ready to leave for my lunch break, and I had put this vintage bag on the counter while I was putting my coat on. An expensively dressed woman who had just walked up to the counter picked up my bag and asked my coworker who was at the register how much it was. I walked over and politely took it from her. I said it was my personal bag and it wasn't for sale. She literally snatched it out of my hands and went off on both of us. The bag was sitting on the counter. It had been for sale. It was obviously much too fancy and expensive a bag for a retail loser to own. And oh, didn't we just wish we were Ivy League students like her precious babies? Which was actually funny because I didn't work there because I needed the money. I worked there as a favor to the owner, who was a friend of the family, basically as a fill-in for one of her full-time employees who had a chronic illness and called in sick a lot. It allowed her to keep the other worker rather than letting her go for someone more reliable. This entitled woman probably really would have flipped if I had told her that my husband was a professor at our beloved Ivy League school, and I could easily afford that bag, thank you very much. So yada yada yada, this woman just kept screaming at us. She wanted that bag so badly. She absolutely refused to believe that it belonged to me. She started screaming about wanting to see the manager or the owner and didn't believe my coworker when she informed the woman that she was the store manager. We finally told her if she didn't give me my bag back and leave the store, we were going to call the cops. She refused, so the police were called. Police get there, entitled woman gets even worse and doubles down on her particular form of insanity. She tells them that it's her bag and she had brought it in with her and that we were trying to steal it from her. The cop took the bag away from her and opened it up and dumped all the contents on the counter. My cell phone, which of course I knew the passcode to and she didn't, prescription medication bottles in my name, my checkbook, and everything else I carried on a daily basis. How she had failed to recognize just from the weight of the bag that it had stuff in it, I don't know. You could see the fear creeping into her face as the cop came up with one item after another that proved the bag was mine. When he got to my wallet and pulled out what was clearly my license, the woman jerked away from the second cop who had a hand on her arm and pretty much ran out of the store. I kind of wish they had gone after her, but apparently they didn't think the situation warranted it because they just asked us if we considered it worth pursuing and pressing charges. Sadly, in that moment, we didn't want to be bothered. We just wanted it to be over so we could go on with our day. I wish now that we had. She needed to be taught a lesson or be forced to get mental help. She wasn't the only crazy entitled customer we ever got, but she was one of the most memorable. Am I the jerk if I call off my engagement because of a comment my fiancé made about my late wife? Background: I, 43 male, have 2 kids with my late wife, Kayla. Sam, who's 21, and Liz, who's 16. All fake names. Kayla passed when our kids were 15 and 10. I won't give specifics about what happened, but she was struck by a drunk driver when she was on her way home from work. She really was the love of my life, and to say that her passing hit our family hard would be an understatement. I promised myself that if I got back into the dating game, I wouldn't date anyone for at least a couple of years for the sake of my kids. 3 years after my wife's passing, I met my now fiancé. We'll call her Amanda. Things went slow, and I didn't introduce her to my kids until we had been dating for about a year at that point. Now we've been together for 3 years, and we're engaged. Amanda and my kids always had a good relationship. Neither of my kids are super close to her, but they've always been friendly and welcoming to her, and Amanda has never overstepped any boundaries they have, like trying to replace their mother. At the beginning of Amanda and I's relationship, she was a bit insecure of the fact that I was a widower. During the first few months of us dating, she would constantly ask things like, if Kayla had never passed, would I still be with her right now? I always kept my answers brief and told her that I didn't like thinking about the what ifs, and that she was the one I was dating now, and that was what mattered. Eventually, she stopped making these comments, and I stopped worrying about it. Now on to the issue. My parents were hosting a family dinner to celebrate my fiancé and I's engagement. It was my mom and dad, my late wife's sister and her husband, Sam and Liz, and me and Amanda. Dinner was going well. We were all making small talk with each other and talked about wedding plans. About halfway into dinner, my mom made a comment about how she was so happy I was able to find the spark I had with Kayla and someone else. I don't think anybody really paid much attention to the comment, but then Amanda laughed and said, "I'm happy it happened to her. Otherwise, I never would have gotten him to myself." The tone of the dinner immediately shifted and everyone got extremely tense, especially my kids. Amanda noticed the shift and started awkwardly laughing like she was trying to play her comment off as a joke. I was honestly just frozen, as that was the first time she had made a comment like that. My kids looked disgusted, and Liz got up and walked out to the car. Sam waited a bit longer like he wanted me to say something, but I was still in shock about what Amanda had just said. To make a long story about the dinner short, the dinner was kind of ruined, so I said my goodbyes to everyone, grabbed my fiancé, and we all drove home. My daughter hasn't spoken to me or Amanda since, and it's been 3 days. I got tired of it and pulled my son aside to ask him what I should do. He said something along the lines of, "I'm a grown man and don't care who another grown man marries, but I don't want a woman who speaks like that about our mother around my sister." Sam's comment stuck with me, and now I'm considering calling off the engagement entirely. She's never made comments like this before, but I'm worried if I let it slide this one time, it will become more frequent and it will affect my daughter. I need some advice from outside perspectives and just want to do the right thing for my kids. Would I be the jerk if I called off the engagement because of the comment she made? Edit. Thank you for all of the advice, even the people calling me a bad father. I think your guys' words are what I needed to pull my head out of my backside. I'll try to talk to my kids alone tonight before speaking with my fiancé, and we'll see where it goes from there. I'm pretty sure my fiancé and I are over though. Update. To answer a few questions, did my fiancé apologize to anyone at the dinner party? No, she didn't. I honestly didn't think it even registered or has registered to her what she said was wrong. 2. Does fiancé have social anxiety? Not to my knowledge, no. In all the time I've known her, she's never shown any signs of social anxiety and doesn't have a history of it. How old was my late wife? She was 37 when she passed, and we were the same age. Amanda is 41. A lot of people were asking for clarification on the time frame of her passing and when fiancé and I met. At this point in time, Kayla had been gone for about 6 years, and I met Amanda roughly 3 years after Kayla's passing. While I'm writing this update, it's the day after I talked to my kids. So last night around 5:30, my fiancé left for work. She works nights most days of the week, so I was able to call my son and ask if he could come over so I can talk to him and his sister. He goes to our local college and lives in an apartment near his school. When he started college, he wanted to move out, but also wanted to stay close to us, so he settled on an apartment a few blocks away from the college. He came over, and I called him and his sister into the living room to talk with the both of them. When they were both seated, I told them point blank that I didn't think the wedding was happening anymore, and that the comment she made was unacceptable. I then, by the advice of the comments, apologized to them. I told them I was sorry for not saying anything for so long and letting the tension thicken in our home. I told my daughter that I understood why she hasn't spoken to me and that I was sorry for allowing her to think I was even remotely okay with what she said. I felt pretty spineless after we had gotten back from the dinner that night, so I wanted to do everything in my power to make it right to the kids during the conversation. My daughter told me that she felt disgusted at the comment Amanda made, and even more so when I didn't defend her mother. She then told me that the past 2 years that she's known Amanda, she felt like she's been gradually trying to push her and Sam away from me. One of the examples Liz gave me was when my son moved out. He moved out when he was about to start his sophomore year of college, and when he mentioned the idea of moving out, Amanda was the one who took that and ran with it. According to Liz, Amanda was the one encouraging Sam the most to move out. To be clear, I was never against Sam moving out, but I was clear to him that he was welcome to live at home for his college years, and even after until he found where he wanted to be. I asked Sam if he felt pushed out by Amanda, and if that's why he moved out. He said he hadn't felt pushed out before he told everyone he wanted to move, but after he put it out there, my fiancé kept pushing for him to move out. Liz cut in and said that every time she brings up college, Amanda keeps encouraging her to go out of state. Liz doesn't plan on going out of state, and she's been open about wanting to go to the college Sam is attending right now. Liz said she feels like Amanda is waiting till she graduates high school and goes to college so she can move out. A lot of the comments were right about the subtle comments, eventually turning into Amanda wanting my kids pushed away from me. Liz said that she was scared that by the time I eventually noticed the way Amanda was acting, too big of a wedge would have already been driven between me and them. I told my kids that I'm sorry it's taken me this long to notice, and that I was also sorry they've been walking on eggshells for so long. I hugged them and told them that no matter what, they're my top priority, not Amanda or anybody else. A lot of the comments pointed out that even though my son is grown, he still needs his father, and I made sure to let my son know that I will always be there for him and his sister even when they are well grown. The entire conversation lasted 2 hours. We covered a lot of the bases we wanted to, and it got emotional on all sides. In short, Amanda and I are done. I've made it a point to tell my kids that none of this situation is their fault and that Amanda is the grown woman who said what she said. My kids and I are okay now, but they aren't 100% okay with me and probably won't be for a while. I'm completely fine with that, and I just want my kids to be comfortable at their own home. Amanda is tomorrow off from work, so I plan on talking to her tomorrow. I also plan on calling my mother to ask her why she thought it was okay to even bring up Kayla at the dinner. I don't want my daughter here when it all goes down, so she's staying tonight and tomorrow night with Sam. So that's where I'm at now. Not super happy about the outcome of me and Amanda, but would rather my kids be happy and healthy than for me to have a wife. Again, thank you everyone for the advice and the harsh words. Am I the jerk for not telling my wife the real reason why I married her? About 14 years ago, I, male 42 now, got my MEng degree and I was struggling to find work. I did eventually land a job working for a medium-sized company, but even then, I was still struggling financially as I owed so much debt and student loans and lived in a pretty expensive city. It was admittedly a pretty low point in my life. I'm sure many people can relate to the feeling that you've done so much schoolwork and then don't have much to show for it. I did, however, build a good relationship with my boss, male 84 today, as in my mind this was the easiest way to earn promotions and in turn a high income. Eventually, I met my boss's family. One thing that quickly became obvious was that his daughter, Rose, who's 39 now, liked me a lot. I didn't think too much of it at the time because I thought mixing my professional and personal lives would be a bad idea. Also, I did not reciprocate her feelings in any way. Though for obvious reasons, I was always exceptionally polite to her at every interaction. Long story short, my boss's wife, who's 78 today, found out, and I started getting invited by my boss to his house pretty regularly for things like dinners, etc. Throughout all of these, my boss and his wife would somehow always steer conversations in ways that led to me talking to Rose, or would leave the room for some reason or another, just leaving the two of us together. Later, my boss would even tell me things like how I felt like family and he'd be happy to recommend me to higher positions, etc., since his wife and daughter are so fond of me. Needless to say, I started talking more to Rose, and within weeks, I got a promotion. While I will admit to not feeling much of a romantic connection with Rose, I did put a lot of effort into fostering that relationship, and she was happy with the attention I was giving her. After a few months of this, we were married. As you can imagine, my career really took off then. However, I did leave the company roughly 2 years after getting married, and with the recommendations I was able to get from my former boss/father-in-law and several other people he introduced me to, I was able to secure a good position elsewhere. Today, I can happily say that after being married for 12 years and having 3 kids together, there's no other woman I'd rather spend my life with. Because I feel like this, I've always felt that my primary motivator for getting married to Rose is no longer relevant. That being said, I had lunch with 2 of my longtime friends, Michael, who's 43, and Wilson, who's 38, a few days ago. We haven't seen each other in about a year, so it was a nice opportunity to catch up. I'd like to add that Michael and Wilson are both familiar with my situation as we were in regular contact back then. At one point in the conversation, Michael asked if Rose ever found out the real reason why I decided to marry her. I told him of course not, and that her finding out would be needlessly painful for her. Wilson agreed with Michael, saying things like honesty and transparency were the main things he and his wife picked up from couples therapy, and that it would be better long-term if Rose found out. I reaffirmed to them that Rose not knowing would be best for our family, and the conversation largely ended there. That being said, I've started to think more about what they've said, and I do feel a little guilty. Am I the jerk? Update. I've had time to do some self-reflection over the past few days, and my conclusion is that I'm probably the luckiest man in the world to have such a fantastic wife and wonderful kids. Rest assured that I have no intention of my wife ever finding out the real reason why I decided to marry her. Also, I'm very confident that my two friends won't say anything to her about it. I failed to mention it earlier, but I also have some ammunition on Michael's marriage, and given that Wilson is in couples therapy, I'm highly doubtful he'd say anything. Even without this, I can't imagine either of them overstepping such a boundary. I'm sure many of you are wondering how they knew about this in the first place. The reason they knew was because we were all housemates at the time, and they were able to witness the situation unfold firsthand. I guess you could say that while I'm largely an introverted person, I still talk a lot, especially with my friends. I do still feel guilty about my initial motivation to pursue my wife, but also very grateful for how things turned out. I like to think she's also grateful. Over the last few weeks, I've been trying to turn this gratitude into action by making my wife feel appreciated. Yesterday, I brought her breakfast in bed, and in the evening after work, I brought her a surprisingly expensive bouquet of flowers. Today, we have reservations for her favorite restaurant and a sitter who will watch the kids. I know these things are minor in the grand scheme of things, but I want to do more thoughtful things for my wife. This will be my early New Year's resolution. My love for her certainly grew over time. When I first met her, I thought she was physically stunning, and I still do. I was just very caught up in my own life, largely finances. Also, I thought that mixing my professional and personal lives was not a good idea. Also, our personalities were the opposites. She was certainly attracted to me, and when her father covertly encouraged me, with some incentives, I went with it. Regardless, I love her and the family we've created together more than anything. Interviewer accuses me of parking in the handicap spot and tells me to prove it. A few years ago, I was in school and job hunting. I got an interview at a company for office work, filing, answering phones, setting appointments, etc. I was looking forward to getting an office job instead of retail or fast food. The building had big window walls that overlooked the parking lot so you could see cars pulling in and parking. I pull into the lot and I park my car. I get out and walk into the office. Now, as I'm walking in, I note that there's a car parked in the handicap space in the front of the office. This car looks just like mine, I should note. So I walk in and I'm greeted by the manager, who kind of gives me a scowling look. It made me uneasy a little as we walk back to his office. We sit down and he's asking me questions in a bit of a clipped tone. He seems annoyed by my answers and I don't understand what's going on at this point. Finally, he says, "Do you always park in handicapped spaces?" I'm confused, so I ask him what he means. He goes on a rant about how entitled I am for parking in the handicap spot at a potential place of employment, and I'm just getting more lost. I asked him what's going on because I didn't park in the handicap spot. I'm parked in the lot. He argues with me and says he watched my car pull in and saw me park there. I again told him that I didn't park in the handicap spot, but the car that I walked by in that spot looks similar to my car. He says that he knows that he saw me park and get out of that car. At this point, I'm over the whole interview. I knew this would be a horrible place to work for if this is the guy managing it. Then he goes a step further and says, "Prove it." I grab my purse and get my keys out. I don't even bother waiting for him and just leave the office. He's jogging after me and hurried outside to stand and wait. His face went from smug arrogance to Pikachu real quick as I walked past the car in the handicap spot. He asked me where I was going as I walked over to my car, then I turned around and made eye contact as I hit the button on my keys to unlock it and got in. He was starting to walk over to me, calling out that he was sorry about the misunderstanding, but I just put the car in reverse and left. I didn't even make eye contact with him as I drove away. Edit. This was my second interview, so the manager knows what I and my car look like. I didn't know why he said he saw me. I'm assuming it was a lie to get me to admit I did it. I've pondered this many a night. Trust me. My niece ruined my anniversary present for my girlfriend. My girlfriend, who's 19, and I, 19 male, are celebrating our 5-year anniversary this Halloween. Every anniversary, she always gives me these impressive figurines that she makes, and it always blows me away. I always feel like my presents are always way lamer than her presents, so I decided to make her something this year. With guidance from her friends, I printed pictures of us onto a large canvas and used white tape to make cute frames. I know it may not seem that impressive, but I'm not artistic, but she is, and I wanted to make her something that I thought she would like. I had the gift hidden in a closet. The problem came whenever I looked after my sister, who's 33, her kids, who are 4 and 5. I took them down to the basement to do some painting. My niece walked away from the table to what I thought was the drawer with the art supplies, so I didn't think much of it. So while I was focused on my nephew and gushing over how he and his sister are the best artists in the world, my niece went into the closet where my girlfriend's present was and with her paintbrush painted all over it. The second I heard the door, my head shot up. When I saw my niece over the canvas smudging paint all over it, my heart sank. I took my niece out of the closet, shoved the canvas back into the closet, and slammed the door shut and carried her back to the table. I was horrified. My niece and nephew kept asking me if I was okay. I reassured them I was fine and ended up bringing them ice cream to convince them that everything was okay. When my girlfriend came home, after I gave my nephew a bath, I asked if she could help give my niece one. She laughed at how she was covered in paint, and I joked that she went to town painting. While I was waiting for my girlfriend and niece to finish, I watched cartoons with my nephew and started thinking about what I was going to do, because nothing I could get her could possibly be good enough for our 5-year anniversary, and what I was going to give her was completely ruined. She deserves an amazing present, and I don't know what to do. I'm done for. I think a cool consolation might be to do a painting class or date type of thing with her. She's artistic and you aren't, but it might be really cool to her that you put yourself out of your comfort zone if you still want to do something for her after showing and explaining what happened. That's rough, but you did good, honestly. You put good thought in and consulted her friends, so you've definitely shown you care. OP. Consulting her friends was not only because they know and care about my girlfriend, but they are also artists, so I thought her artistic friends would give great advice for what a non-artist can make, but still turn out really good. They did. Update. I told my girlfriend, as the few of y'all suggested. Later that day, when my sister picked up her kids, I took her to the basement and to the closet to show her what my niece did. I explained that I've always felt like, while she does like the presents I give her, I feel bad because she put so much effort into my presents. I explained to her what exactly I was trying to make. Luckily, my niece didn't cover the entirety of the canvas, and my girlfriend saw bits of the canvas. In particular, a picture her friend took of us in the cafeteria in high school with her head on my shoulder. She gushed about how sweet it was, and she suggested that we could turn this into an anniversary project. We could make another canvas and maybe include some of her pictures. I told her how much of a great idea it was, and she was jumping with joy and excitement. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my son's mom extra custody after her boyfriend asked me? I co-parent my 8-year-old son with my ex. We share 50-50 custody with a VERT-specific custody calendar to ensure we both get the same amount of days with our son. Last year, my ex asked if I could give her my Christmas week in exchange for a week in the future because she wanted to go visit her family out of state and could only do it on the days I had my son. I said yes. From that point on, she has refused to give me my week back. She always has some excuse or wanted to do when it worked for her. In other words, she scammed me out of custody time. I said so be it. Earlier this week, she asked again if she could have our son this week of Christmas. I have him the week of, and she has him the week after, again to visit family. I said of course, but need to give me 2 weeks in return. 1 from last year and 1 for this year. And I get those 2 weeks before you get any extra time, so you can't do me over again. One of those weeks can be the week of Thanksgiving when you have him. She refused and tried gaslighting me by saying she gave me back the week I gave up last year. I told her there was no room to negotiate, take it or leave it. The next day, her boyfriend called me. He said he was going to propose this Thanksgiving, which is why my ex doesn't want to give up Thanksgiving. They both wanted to travel to see his family for Christmas and New Year's and celebrate their engagement. That's why I can't have her Thanksgiving time and why she needs my Christmas week. I told him my custody arrangement was none of his business, and I don't have to explain anything to him. In fact, I'm not open to any custody changes anymore. You can go tell my son's mom that you messed around and found out. Now he's trying to walk back everything he said because he knows he seriously messed up by inserting himself into this matter. Of course, he said he was just trying to help out. Not the jerk. Her boyfriend has messed up big time by sticking his beak in this. If she refuses to give you the time back you are owed, you are well within your rights to refuse any further custody changes. My brother has exactly the same issue with his ex and their 2 sons. She expects him to be flexible for her, but not the other way around. You're fired for obeying my rules. Please stay until we can replace you though. It was 2005, and the lady I had met over the internet, having visited me in Australia and me visiting her in the US and meeting her folks and all that, she had now come to be with me and we had married. But since arriving to stay, she had a lot of problems as her vocational college degree was not recognized in Australia, leaving her with difficulties getting a job. She was determined and flexible though, and did some temp jobs, clerical, receptionist kinds of things, using skills she had learned while working at college as a librarian. She finally got a real job as a receptionist/clerk at a company that brokered loans, and she got on with things. One thing that was always a problem was that sales reps and sharks would have their clients come in, and they would tell the women to make coffee for them. That wasn't part of their role. So my wife and coworkers were told that they were not to do that. It was up to the salesperson to make the coffee for themselves and their clients. This was part of an initiative to try to retain women in these roles as they didn't tend to stay long in what was something of an anarchic office. So my wife is working, and as salesmen's, they called them financial advisors, but they were the credit business version of the used car salesman class. Client comes in and she buzzed the guy. He comes out and says to her to make them both coffees. She tried to be discreet, but said that he knew she couldn't do that. He blew up, went to her supervisor, and she told my wife to make the coffees. Later, she had her in the office and fired her. Yep, she was fired for trying to do as she was told. The opposite of malicious, I guess. But the karma comes in anyway. She was fired, but asked to stay on until they got another person to replace her. For the next 2 months, she continued to go to work, now able and ready to refuse anything she didn't want to do, especially the coffee making. The same guy tried once. She said no, so fire me. They could not find a replacement. Word of their issues at that company had got around to the receptionist and clerical field locally. Edit. She reminded me the agency she had got the job through refused to send anyone. It was the 3rd person in a row dumped when the probationary period was nearly up, so the agency was not being paid their commission. Then she was offered a much better job with some real responsibility and standing, and almost 30% more salary. Walking in the office the next day and told them she was leaving at the end of the day. No notice required, of course, and they still had not got a replacement and did not find one for months more, by which time they were trying to replace 2 of them. Eventually, the company let that supervisor go and initiated sensible rules. My wife never looked back, but we still have a chuckle 18 years later at how well getting fired worked out for her and how badly it ended for the supervisor who fired her staff for obeying the rules. I'm your new manager and you'll listen to me. No, I really won't. Bit of background before I start. This story happened when I was still working as a machinist back when I was 19. I started that job on second shift, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., but was transferred to weekend shift, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., barely 6 months later. And the manager for weekend was an older man, we'll call him Jay. This is important for later. Since weekend was severely understaffed, we were each put in charge of multiple machines. I was in charge of running 4 machines that formed a big block in a corner of the factory that hardly anyone ever went to. One Friday morning, as I was setting up my machines, a short, rotund man with a Vernon Dursley mustache walked up to me and tapped me on the shoulder. Surprised that I had a visitor, I pulled my head out of the machine and greeted him. We've got entitled manager. Me. Hi, can I help you with something? Entitled manager. I'm his name. Me. Okay, nice to meet you. I'm OP. I hold out my hand for him to shake, which he ignores. Entitled manager. Yeah, I'm just looking around, trying to get a feel for the place, you know? Me. Understandable, I guess. I trailed off, not really sure what he wanted and knowing I had about 20 minutes to get the machines going before I fell behind on my work order. You've got a pretty nice setup here. I wouldn't have known there was anyone working back here if I hadn't wandered over this way. Me. I guess. I bet you have fun back here. You can just slack off all day, and no one comes by to bother you. He laughs in a kind of condescending way. Me. Sorry, but is there a point to this conversation, or can I finish setting up? Yeah, I probably could have been a bit more tactful here, But I worked my butt off and I had the highest job completion rate out of every shift who ran those machines, which was quite a feat considering I was alone and the other shifts had between 2 and 4 people running those same machines. Entitled manager sneers at me. You don't know who I am, do you? Me. Nope. Should I? Yeah, you should. I'm your new boss. Me. I stare at him for a second, then laugh. Really? Did Jay finally retire? What? Jay? What's he got to do with this? Me. Jay's my manager. It was at this moment I realized he had gotten ahead of himself and didn't even know who he was in charge of yet. No, he's not. I am. I was just promoted to first shift manager. That means you work for me. Me. No, that's not what that means, I said slowly. I'm on weekend shift, not first, so you're not my boss. Jay is. If you're weekend, then why are you running first shift's equipment? He asked me in an aha, gotcha kind of way. Me. This is where I've been assigned. You want specifics? You're gonna have to ask the manager. I didn't choose which machines I run. I am your manager. Me. No, you're not. Now, can I please get back to work? Entitled manager steps into my personal space and looks up at me with a frown on his face, like it was somehow my fault that I was a foot taller than he was. I'm the first shift manager. Me. Good for you, man, and I mean that, but that doesn't mean you're my manager. He pokes me in the chest. I'm the first shift manager. That means you have to listen to me. Me. I look down at his finger, then take a step back so he isn't touching me anymore. Don't do that. Entitled manager, seemingly amused by my response, steps closer and tries to poke me again. It was at that moment that my actual manager showed up. Jay. What's going on, OP? Machines ready to get moving? Me. Not yet. I was just being introduced to entitled manager here. Guess I got distracted. Jay sees how irritated I look and quickly realized what was going on. Is that right? Hey, entitled manager, why don't you let me introduce you to the other weekend guys? OP's got to get these machines going so he can make rate. Entitled manager smirks at me. Yeah, sure. Have a good day, OP. I'll see you later. Jay leads him away and I get back to work without any more interruptions for the rest of my shift. But entitled manager had apparently decided that my defiance was unacceptable and something he needed to personally correct. So I hadn't seen the last of him just yet. Over the next 5 months, every encounter with entitled manager went about the same way. He would try to give me orders, I would refuse, and he would keep pressing until I got irritated. But eventually, Jay got tired of hearing entitled manager complain about me not listening to him and called me into the office for a chat. He basically told me to just suck it up and do what he asked, that it was only because I wasn't listening to him that he kept bugging me, and that if I just gave in, he would get bored eventually and leave me alone. So I begrudgingly went along with it and started doing all of the BS tasks he wanted me to do. These tasks included painting tables for first shift, fixing entire baskets full of parts that first shift messed up, shoveling brass chips from a wheelbarrow to a barrel for absolutely no reason, and setting up machines for first shift. And I was expected to do those while still doing my own job. If I didn't really need the money, I would have quit the moment Jay told me to go along with his BS. But since I didn't, entitled manager only got more brazen as time went on. Things finally came to a head one Saturday morning. Someone on third shift had forgotten to lock up the machine after a sensor malfunctioned, so I went about setting it up for the next order code like I always did, completely unaware of the time bomb I had my head inside of. One of the pneumatic doors bugged out due to the faulty sensor and slammed shut on my hand. I should mention I had the machine in setup mode, which should have stopped that from happening. But that's why it's so important to lock out a machine when there's a sensor or an electrical issue in those machines. I was lucky my hand wasn't crushed. As it was, my hand basically turned into a single giant bruise that even made it down to the bones. With the help of another coworker, I got my hand out and went and reported the accident to Jay. Company policy stated that I had to go to the hospital to have it checked out. After having the machine inspected, Jay knew I couldn't have done anything to prevent it, but I still had to go take a drug test after the hospital visit as a formality. Well, entitled manager got wind that I was involved in the accident and decided now would be a great time to press his luck. He comes barging into Jay's office, demanding to know why I was stupid enough to put my hand inside a machine that everyone knew was messed up. Me, because I didn't know it was messed up. Entitled manager. That's BS. You just wanted an excuse to go home. I ignored him and kept my eyes focused on Jay while he finished filling out my paperwork. I always knew you were a wimp, but this is a new level, even for you, OP. What, you can't stand working like a real man, so you're just going home? I keep ignoring him. Hey, OP. OP, I'm talking to you. He steps around in front of me and pokes me in the chest while still ranting at me. Him touching me was the last straw. Me. Jay, get this stupid jerk out of my face. Oh, you've done it now, he said triumphantly. You can't talk to me like that. I'm a manager. I'll have you fired. Me. Do it. Please, for the love of God, fire me. Jay. OP, calm down. Just think about what you're saying. Me. Jay, I swear, if he's still in this office in 3 seconds, I'm going to pick up this chair, and I'm not going to stop until it's broken or he is. That shut Entitled Manager up, for a minute anyway. Entitled Manager. Jay, are you going to let him talk to me like that? He just threatened me. Jay. Entitled Manager, I'd advise you to shut up and leave. OP's a big guy, and I'm too old to try and stop him if he decides to follow through. Entitled Manager darted out of the room a few seconds later. Jay. You know you can't threaten people like that, OP. I'll back you up this time because he was out of line, but I won't be able to protect you next time. Me. Yeah, thanks, Jay. I'll call you when I leave the hospital, I said before leaving the office and driving myself 20 miles to the nearest hospital. Entitled Manager never tried to harass me after that day. In fact, he did his best to avoid going anywhere near me after that day, but he didn't exactly learn his lesson either. I'll tell that story if anyone is interested in it. Update. So, unfortunately, a few months after my accident, I was moved to a different department. This one dealt almost exclusively with lead products, while I had mostly worked with steel and lead-free products before then. Turns out, I'm pretty allergic to being absolutely covered in lead dust, so I was told they couldn't risk having me in the department anymore and let me go. To this day, I think the only reason I was moved was because of my altercation with Entitled Manager, but I don't have any proof. Now, a few of you asked why Entitled Manager was able to get away with so much. The reason for that is simple. Nepotism. Entitled Manager's dad was head of the foundry for the better part of 30 years, and while he didn't have quite as much pull as the owners, he was well-liked and most people treated his word as law. So Entitled Manager was given a job straight out of high school and he had never worked anywhere else. His dad covered for him at every opportunity until the day he retired. Then his friends continued the trend. There was one incident where Entitled Manager took a hammer to a vending machine and the plant manager bought a new one without so much as a harsh look in Entitled Manager's direction. There was a whole mess surrounding my leaving that ended with the plant manager and Entitled Manager lying to a judge about why I left. They'd tried to say that I was a bad employee who didn't deserve my unemployment wages, which ultimately led to a trial, which I won. Now, most of this information comes from a few of my friends that still worked at the factory, but I know it's true because it made it to the local papers. The plant manager, the one who had been protecting Entitled Manager, had his power severely stripped after the crap storm with the judge settled. He had an assistant plant manager assigned to help him manage his workload, which is a fancy way of saying they tasked someone with watching him. Because his biggest backer was essentially taken out of the picture, Entitled Manager didn't enjoy the same leeway he did with me. In fact, it seemed the new plant manager really didn't like Entitled Manager. So when Entitled Manager pushed another guy a little too far one day, and he had a hammer wrench chucked at his head hard enough to shatter a window, the thrower was just written up for breaking the window instead of fired or arrested for assault. About 8 months after I left, the plant manager who'd been protecting Entitled Manager was let go by the company, and for good reason. He'd had the plant making parts that they didn't even have orders for. And for those who don't know, at the end of the year when it's time to report the earnings and inventory to the IRS, you actually have to pay for the inventory you have on hand, presumably as estimated income since it's assumed you had orders for them. They had 10 30-foot tall, 40-foot wide shelves full of baskets of parts ready to be sold, and not one of them had an order code assigned to them. So the plant manager was gone after that blunder. An intelligent person would have realized after that it was time to stop being a jerk to people and that they were well and truly alone in the factory. But no, not Entitled Manager. He didn't learn a darn thing. Despite hammer wrenches being thrown at him, his tires mysteriously going flat 5 times in a month, and pretty much everyone in the factory hating his guts. Why he wasn't just fired, I honestly don't know, but he wasn't. until the day he landed the company in ever more hot water. So there was a truck driver who had been working for the parent company of the factory for 20-something years. He was a well-liked, soft-spoken man who had never been so much as written up in his 20 years. He was also black, which is important for this next part. We'll call the truck driver TD for simplicity's sake. This story was told to me by my friend G, who was a machinist. He was working about 10 feet away from truck driver when this happened. One day, while truck driver was waiting for his truck to be loaded up, entitled manager spots him standing around on his phone. I heard he was talking to his wife, but I don't actually know. Entitled manager: "Hey, what are you doing?" Truck driver pulls his phone away from his ear. "I'm waiting for my truck to be loaded. Do you need something?" Entitled manager: "Well, if you don't have anything better to do while you wait, how about you go grab a broom and start sweeping? You know, actually make yourself useful for something other than blocking the path." Truck driver: "Oh, was I blocking you? Sorry, I didn't realize." Tries to move out of the way. "Didn't you hear me? I said grab a broom and start sweeping." "That's not my job, man. But look, if I'm bothering you, I'll just wait outside until my truck is ready, okay?" Entitled manager: "That's what I hate about you." Definitely not saying that. "You're always trying to do anything you can to get out of work." Truck driver hangs up his phone and tucks it in his pocket. "Don't do that again." "Do what?" "You know darn well what you did. I don't know what kind of bad day you're having, but don't use that word." Entitled manager steps closer to truck driver. "What'd you say to me?" Truck driver, not backing down: "I said, don't use that word." Entitled manager: "What are you going to do about it if I do?" Then he called him it again. He said while poking him in the chest. What truck driver did was immediately after that word left entitled manager's mouth a second time, he punched him. Now, I've heard conflicting stories about this part. Some say he jumped on entitled man's chest and proceeded to beat him up until someone could get him off of him. But G claims that he only hit him once, and that one punch really messed him up. Just for good measure, there was a forklift parked behind entitled manager at the time, and that's what cushioned his fall. The forklift driver sitting in the driver's seat swears he thought he'd been rear-ended by another forklift after entitled manager fell onto him. An ambulance was called, entitled manager was rushed to the hospital to undergo emergency surgery, and truck driver was, unfortunately, arrested for assault. Don't worry though. Remember that plant manager who didn't like entitled manager? He was at home at the time it happened, but he made it to the factory before truck driver was taken away in handcuffs. He personally dropped a few $100s and went around to everyone in the factory with a collections bag, asking them to donate to pay truck driver's bail fund. He had raised over 10 grand in less than an hour and had truck driver bailed out in 3. Truck driver sued the company for emotional damages, discrimination, and a couple of other things. Then he retired with the money he got from the case. There were a lot of people who backed up his word that entitled manager started it. And as for entitled manager, he was fired before he woke up from his surgery's anesthetic. The plant manager personally drove almost an hour on his day off to tell entitled manager the good news in person, and then waited for him to wake up just to make sure he got it. He applied to several other management positions in the local area, but he had burned a crap ton of bridges during his life, and no one would hire him. Entitled manager now works as a food vendor at a traveling carnival. I still see him once a year when the carnival comes to town, and he scowls at me every time like I personally ruined his life. That look is the only reason I still go to that carnival. Karen fiance demands I buy gifts for her kid too. I'm 30, male. My daughter, who's 14, her Nintendo Switch completely stopped working earlier this week. She got it in the month it was released, of March 2017, and has kept it in good condition for over 6 years. Yesterday, she had her conference cross-country meet, where she both PR'd and qualified to run state. To celebrate her new achievements, I took her out to eat and then bought her a new Nintendo Switch with a game she picked out. My fiance, who's 38, came back from her parents earlier today and saw my daughter playing with her Switch. She asked me about it after my daughter left with her boyfriend, and I told her that I wanted to celebrate her accomplishments in her running career, so I got her a new Switch as a gift. Fiance then got really angry and told me that if I'm going to buy my daughter something, then I have to be fair and buy her kids, who are 19, 16, and 13, something too. I pointed out that I do buy her kids gifts when they reach goals and achievements too. For example, I bought my stepdaughter an inexpensive Hello Kitty necklace as a high school graduation gift, and I let both the boys pick out 2 video games when they both passed their final exams. She told me that it's unfair I spend more on my daughter than I do on her kids because I make a lot more than her. Fiancé then got angrier and accused me of not liking her kids because of the different financial treatment between her kids and mine. She left with her 2 sons, but her daughter stayed with me at the house because she's on my side. I got a bunch of texts from her family calling me a selfish jerk for treating her kids differently when buying them gifts. Am I the jerk? Edit. To answer some common questions, because there's a lot of comments and it's hard to get them in a timely manner. How does your fiancé treat your daughter? My daughter and fiancé don't interact much. They're both polite to each other, but they simply don't talk much aside from small talk and my daughter asking her some questions about cooking food. I've mentioned to my daughter before that if my fiancé were to ever mistreat her, she needs to tell me, and I will always have her back no matter what. To my knowledge, my fiancé doesn't do this at all. They just don't talk much. Do you have a will or a trust fund in place? I have a will set up that gives my daughter everything. My will is safe with a very trusted lawyer friend of mine. I also have a trust in place for my daughter, and she will gain full access to it once she turns 21. Did you have this argument in front of her kids? No. She called her kids down and told them what we were arguing about. I told them my side, and her sons took her side and left with her. What's your relationship like with her kids? How are they with your daughter? My relationship with her sons is unfortunately minimal. I try to talk to them about their favorite topics or hobbies, and they either ignore me or shut the conversation down as soon as possible. I don't talk to them much either, other than when they do come to me for advice on things like school, friends, etc. My relationship with our older daughter is very good though. I'd like to think that we're close. As for my daughter, she doesn't talk to her stepbrothers much, but she's extremely close with her older stepsister. I hope this helps clear some things up. Update. She came back at 12 in the morning alone. She said she left the boys at her parents' place because she doesn't, in her words, want them in the presence of a man who won't provide for them. I sat her down and talked to her about a lot of things, and a lot of you were right. This is not the woman I want to marry. Gee, you think? When I first brought up how she doesn't bring anything to the table when I pay for everything, she didn't want to talk about it and kept dodging the subject. I brought up how unfair it was of her to expect me to provide for her and her kids when she doesn't do anything for my daughter and the bare minimum for me. She doesn't do house chores, she doesn't pay bills, except her and her daughter's car payments and car insurance, and she spends minimal time with both me and my daughter. Fiancé didn't say anything. Then I talked about the financial and emotional issues, and she freaked out. She started yelling about how it was my job as the man to provide for her and her kids, when I make so much more than her and they have no father figure. I'm all they had, and she kept bringing that up as an excuse for her behavior towards my money and how I spent it on my daughter. When I asked her what she expected me to do about my will or a prenup, she told me that any good husband would put his wife above everything else. She had been banking on me giving her everything I had for over a year at this point. I don't like yelling at all, but I was at my breaking point with her at this point. We yelled at each other a lot. It's not my finest moment, and I'm ashamed, but I realized that I let so much happen and my daughter suffered as a result of it. I told her that I wasn't going to tolerate her any longer. My daughter's my #1 priority over anyone else and will always be. I don't think fiancé believed me when I said that, but I guess she realized I was serious when I told her to start packing. I'm done being an ATM for that lady, and it's crazy to think how strangers on an app made me realize how I was stuck in a toxic, manipulative, and mistreating relationship with her. My now ex-fiancé won't be a problem anymore, I hope. I don't think I'll be with another person for a long time, but thank you to everyone for the support and kindness. Edit. If anyone has any questions, ask me and I'll answer. Edit 2. My ex's daughter will be staying with me, and I will financially support her through college, and I will also help her get her own place. Her and I are on good terms, and I want to make sure my ex will not be using her as a token to manipulate me any further. Not the jerk. You're not even married, and already this kind of drama has started? Red flag. If she's that particular, she can buy them gifts as well, or you both could discuss and get all the kids appropriate gifts together. Not the jerk. And if you want foreshadowing of what to expect if you proceed with marriage, you've got it right here. Red flags. Not the jerk. Good luck, bud. I was in a very similar situation about 5 years ago. We were never married, but by the time I realized how bad things were, it was already too late. I had to legally evict her and her kids, and she was still awarded palimony. I'm still paying her a nice chunk of my paycheck every payday, even though she's dated countless guys since we broke up. As long as she doesn't get legally married, I'll be on the hook, and I can't afford to fight it legally. Put in my 2 weeks notice. Covert narcissistic supervisor reveals herself. I, 30 female, have been working at a super small construction company for the past 2 years. I've put my best foot forward every day and never had any issues with anyone in the company. As of 3 months ago, they moved me from an infield coordinator to an accounting position. It was an emergency move as one of the employees stole $80,000 from the company and they needed an immediate replacement. My new supervisor, we'll call her Mary, who's 34, was always super kind to me and we've become pretty good and work friends. Well, these past couple of months have been horrible. I hate the new position, and to be fair, I'm not very good at it. So I found a new position, and I've been keeping it a secret for a while. I let the owner know first, and he was very kind and receptive to it. The issue started when Mary got word of it. She immediately cornered me and started going on this rant, saying things like, "Why didn't you tell me? You're being incredibly unfair and selfish. I can't believe you would do this to us. This is unacceptable. Don't ask me for a referral because you are not getting one from me." I politely told her that the opportunity was something I simply couldn't pass up. She then went to the owner and asked for any details I might have given to him about the new company and new position, I believe to try to sabotage my leaving. And thankfully, I hadn't discussed any details about it with anyone. It was awkward after that, but I didn't think anything of it. The next day, when things took a turn for the worst, Mary decided to be petty and removed all of my authorizations to any accounts I had so I couldn't perform any of my daily tasks. I didn't want to leave on a sour note, so I brought it up to the owner as Mary was out of office that day. He reauthorized my accounts and I continued to work. Mary was back the following day and completely livid that I had went around her and talked directly to the owner. Her actions towards me would only get worse from here on out. The next day, I came in to notice that my desk was moved and my computer access was taken away yet again. Cue the malicious compliance. Since I couldn't do any of my daily tasks and really didn't feel like dealing with a screaming Mary, I was on Reddit for basically the whole day. At the end of the day, Mary came into my new back storage office and said, "Busy day today? I know mine was." I just smiled and said, "Yup, exhausting." She did not like that response and went to the owner to say that I was purposefully not doing my job, and my last 2 weeks would be pointless, so we should just let me go now. The owner disagrees, calls me into his office, and after I explained what she had done, he gave me access again and told Mary to work from home. Another day goes by. It's extremely peaceful now that Mary is working remote, but unfortunately, this does not mean my day was getting any easier. Instead of taking my access away, she had IT start forwarding all my emails to other employees in our departments that had nothing to do with my specific position. At this point, I only had 3 days left, so I just took it as, okay, this sucks for them, but it's on Mary if anyone has questions. I looked at my PTO and I had way more than I had thought, so why not use those for my last days? And that's exactly what I did. I was originally supposed to let all vendors know and start forwarding them off to the appropriate people and interview second-round candidates for my position, but not anymore. The owner was completely okay with it and understood that Mary was being toxic and that he would have a talk with her about her attitude and position if this continues. Now with my last 2 days and me being on PTO, I finally thought I was safe from Mary. But lo and behold, she was still holding a massive grudge, as if me leaving my position was a personal attack on her. She called me at 4:30 in the morning and left me a voicemail saying our company was having an accounting emergency and I need to come in immediately. I called her back about 4 hours later, which she was fuming about, and went on a massive rant about how I'm extremely entitled. I will never get anywhere with my attitude. She's embarrassed for our company to say that I ever worked here. That if she ever finds out where I will be working, she will make sure that I'm fired and will never get a job in this town again. I laughed at her and she went ballistic, like when you take a 4-year-old's toy away. Screaming so loud her voice was shaking, saying silly things like I have no respect for her or the company and that I will rot in heck. I hung up on her when she started bringing my family into things. I called the owner and explained to him what happened, which he wasn't shocked about, and had told me that when she came in that morning, she was going on a rampage like the Tasmanian devil. After finding out what she was freaking out for, he promptly fired her. I was shocked, since this was such a small company and he definitely needed her. I had heard from another coworker that she ended up destroying a bunch of company property on her way out, and now she's facing a lawsuit due to the damages. So thankful she revealed her true self to everyone, and that I'm far away from that company and her. Am I the jerk for requesting my next door neighbor to make her toddler stop crying? Context. I, 36 female, live next door to new tenants who moved in 6 months ago, and they have a toddler who's about 2 or 3 years old. He shrieks at all times of the day and just does the whole throwing himself on the ground tantrum thing multiple times a day. Due to the hybrid work model, I work from home 3 days a week. It's becoming a regular occurrence to have multiple instances of managers or clients asking why there's a kid crying. Over the weekend, I met my neighbor upstairs, and she asked me if I had woken up early shocked. Context: last Saturday, the whole building woke up at 5:45 in the morning because the kid was screaming, and it went on for a good 20 minutes. Info: the kid is healthy, regularly see them in the play area and on the street. The mother is a stay-at-home mom. He is well looked after. He looks about 3 years old and goes to a play school in the mornings, but hasn't been going this week. Now on to what happened today. I'm working on something critical while handing off my responsibilities due to a transition and have back-to-back calls. Over the course of 4 hours, I had to keep pausing my calls. At one point, an important client in another continent asked me if I needed to be excused to take care of my kid. I should reschedule the call. Another person on the call chimed in with a sentence, "We shouldn't be ignoring our kids because our call is running long." Apologized to them and informed them that that was my neighbor's kid. They mentioned how it sounds like it's happening in my house. After the call ended, I went out to the balcony and in a very respectful way asked the mother if the kid was okay. She didn't like it and asked why. I asked her again if her baby is unwell and she said no. She mentioned she took away something that he was trying to eat and that's why he was crying. Explained to her what happened on my calls and she snapped with, "He's a baby, what do you expect?" I asked her if I didn't talk to the kid's mother, who else can I speak to? Explained to her that I completely understand the challenges of being a mother and I'm sure it's overwhelming, but it happens so many times a day and it's not letting me focus. She started crying. Was I the jerk? He's loudly crying as I type this. Took a voice recording, but don't think there's a way to attach it. I'm ready to be judged. If I was in the wrong, I'll go over tomorrow and apologize. Edit. A lot of folks are asking me to go to the office. Most tech companies have globally changed their policies to 100% remote work or some combination of hybrid work, so going to the office apart from my designated 2 days is not an option. Saw a few folks asking me to move. We have a lease till May of 2024, and this location is accessible to my offices. No jerks here. Horrible situation. I really suggest buying a decent headset which will reduce background noise and checking your team settings. I'm in a flat and had builders hammering directly on my wall. It was a nightmare for me to concentrate through, but no one on my call heard a peep. That was with a decent wireless set, maybe 75 pounds. Also, make sure you mute yourself unless you're actually speaking. No jerks here, but this isn't something you need to be involving yourself with. Tell the landlord it's up to them to enforce solutions to noise problems, and that way it's documented, and if other people complain, it can be dealt with more directly. Also, having said that, it isn't that normal. Kids are loud, yeah, and they scream sometimes, but not constantly, unless something's wrong. And that reaction says mom knows it's a problem, but doesn't know what to do. If she had it under control, she'd be apologetic. No jerks here. When you have a toddler, you're darned if you do and darned if you don't. If you give in to a temper tantrum, you're told you're creating a spoiled brat. If you don't give in to a tantrum, most toddlers have the energy and grumpiness to tantrum loudly for hours on end. Would I be the jerk if I asked my stepdad to walk me down the aisle instead of my dad? When I, 28 female, was 4 years old, my dad cheated on my mom with his now wife and mom divorced him. She got 50-50 custody. I hated going to my dad's house because I didn't want his wife to tell me what to do. My dad reduced his time when he got married. I was 6 at that time and wasn't even invited to his wedding, but his stepkids were. His excuse was that I'm still bitter and will ruin the ceremony. Over time, he only paid just the child support and I was completely neglected. When my dad had my half-brother, he was busy with him and ignored me. He even stopped taking me to his house on the weekends. He would ignore me. He would tell me that he wouldn't talk to me unless I act like a good kid, aka call my stepmom Mom rather than her name. He would make excuses not to take me for ice cream or do any activities. There was a time when I graduated elementary school and he promised that he and I would go fishing. He ghosted me and told my mom there was an emergency. I was again let down. By that time, my mom started dating my stepdad, Lenny. Lenny was the father I never had. He was a single dad, but he still treated me like his own kid. He taught me how to swim, how to drive my car. He attended all the school functions I was in. He was there every time my dad wasn't. I went very low contact with my dad, only contacting him on Christmas. I don't even call him on Father's Day. So fast forward to now, I'm getting married. I've asked Lenny to walk me down the aisle because he's the only dad I've ever known. My dad and his family will be coming as guests. This infuriated my dad. He told me I'm his only daughter. I shouldn't keep him away from his right as a father. I'm getting calls from his side of the family too. My father is upset and I'm sidelining him. According to him, he's been a great father and I'm now being unfair to him. Also, he doesn't want Lenny to walk me down the aisle at all. I told my dad he can walk his stepdaughter down the aisle and he will only be my guest. I have made my decision. He called me a jerk and told me he didn't pay child support just so I could grow up to be an ungrateful brat. So was I wrong? I know he's my dad, but I just don't feel like he is. Update. I'm currently at the airport waiting for our plane to our honeymoon, so I thought I should give you an update. I got married 2 days ago. I can say that I'm relieved to know people don't think I'm doing the wrong thing. So I did just that. I texted my dad that I'm not changing my decision. If he wants to come to my wedding, he can. I'm not going to force him. That didn't work. He called my mom and asked to talk about this situation. I was hoping he would drop this, but no. He had to act as an entitled person. I wrote him a long message. I did not want to talk to him knowing he would interrupt me. He does that a lot. I told him to give me one good reason why I should let him walk me down the aisle when he's never been a dad in my life. He never cared enough to make his marriage work with my mom and decided to betray her and our family. Despite all of that, I still loved him, but he had just left me too many times. Lenny has been my dad growing up. I doubt he even knows anything about me. He's just some guy who used to pay child support and with whom I share DNA. He's nothing like my dad because he misses all the big events in my life. He never cared or even tried to be there for me, and he has the audacity to call me his daughter. Since he didn't do his fatherly duties, I don't think I should do any daughter duties towards him. How can he possibly think he could give me away when he already gave me away 20 years ago? A few minutes go by, and then he calls me and asks if this is what I've thought about him my entire life. I asked him where was he when I was graduating? Where was he when I won the first prize in my dancing competition? Where was he when I needed someone to guide me? I dared him to tell me one thing about me. How much does he know me? When was the last time he initiated any conversations with me? He went silent. He asked me if I was still mad about the past. I told him the past was the reason I know he's an unreliable man. All these years, if he has taught me anything, it's that he's a crappy father, and someone like him cannot be trusted. I made the biggest mistake of my life believing he would come through. Lastly, I will not push him to come to my wedding. That's his choice. It's not like he's paying for it or anything. That was it. Later, I got a message from my stepmom that what I said has broken my father's heart. He's so upset. I told her, well, if he was upset by the truth, then he shouldn't have asked and pushed my buttons. He has ignored me all my childhood. He doesn't get to play the dad now. My wedding went smoothly. I would say the majority of my father's side of the family bailed. I had mom's side and some of Lenny's family as well, but overall it was fine. I can't be more thankful to Lenny, though it still hurts getting betrayed by my own dad, but I'm okay. My kids will know Lenny as their grandfather. Final update. I'm pregnant. I'm really excited about my pregnancy. My mom and stepdad have been really happy. I was no contact with my dad after the wedding. From my mother, I came to know that he wanted to contact me. I don't know what excuses he had now. My mom didn't give me his number or any contact info. I guess he heard about my pregnancy and wanted to contact me. I haven't heard from him, but I heard from my aunt that he's been devastated since the wedding. He wanted to come to my wedding, but he wasn't sure if I wanted him there. I mean, even if he is not walking me down the aisle, I still wanted him there. They've been pushing me to talk to my dad and at least hear him out, but I don't think I can. He's been pinning over the fact that he will not get to see his first grandkid. He's very upset and cries all the time. My stepmom also called me from a different number to persuade me to talk to him. She says I'm breaking their family by being petty and I should just let it go. My father is sorry for everything. Well, I responded in a very mean manner, which I sort of regret. I told her, "You mean like you broke my family 20 years ago by getting with my father?" She says I'm being bitter about things that happened 20 years ago. It wasn't just 20 years ago. It was 20 years of countless therapy sessions. Some wounds just don't heal. But I don't think she understood anything that I said. My father has other biological kids. Since he was there for all of them, maybe he should seek them out to give him grandkids, and not the forgotten daughter he threw away because he prioritized something else over her. Sorry for this rant, I'm just emotional, and someone suggested I should ask my stepdad to adopt me. I'm happy to say we are in that process. As for my donor, maybe someday I'll have it in my heart to forgive him, but for now, maybe that day will never come. Am I the jerk for not staying home for the night with my daughter while my wife goes out with friends? Background: my wife rarely goes out with friends, about 6 times per year, and has never been very social and prefers spending time with me. I'm more social, but that has declined as we focused on our family. We have a 2-year-old daughter, and I spend time with the same 3 friends once a week for games night, sometimes in person, sometimes online. I have another 3 friends that I see only once every 2 months, also for games night. If I go out, my wife will tend to our daughter. I often still help with dinner and bedtime, but sometimes leave earlier than this. Our daughter's bedtime is 7:30 p.m., and she often sleeps through the night without fuss, wakes up fussing maybe 5% of the time. I always offer for my wife to sleep in the next day or something similar in exchange for me going out so that it's not a one-sided thing. Scenario: my wife made plans to spend an evening this weekend out with friends. She should be out from 6 p.m. until late. After she made those plans, I was invited to my friend's birthday thing with my second friend group. If I went, I would be gone from 5 p.m. until late. Last time I saw them was exactly 1 month ago. I brought this plan up with my wife as I wanted to make arrangements for a family member to take our daughter for the evening. She was irritated by this and argued that I should stay home. I have since spoken with a family member who's happy to take our daughter at 5 p.m. and have her stay the night, and I've communicated this with my wife. I made it clear that this will not affect her plans at all. I will be responsible for drop-off and pickup of our daughter and will not ask anything of my wife because I understand that it's rare for her to have a night out like this, and so I don't want her to change her plans at all. She still thinks that I should stay home. Her arguments: she says that since she always covers for me, that I should also cover for her. She doesn't want to ask this family member to have our daughter for the night because she thinks we ask too much of them. My arguments: I'm covering for her as she does not have to change her plans and doesn't have to do anything for our daughter. This family member loves watching our daughter, and my wife is often quick to agree to leave our daughter there for sleepovers plenty of other evenings out of convenience. Example: we'll be there for dinner and put our daughter to sleep so she can visit longer, and then we will leave her there for the night. So I don't see why this time it's too much to ask. I feel like she wants me to stay home as a form of punishment for going out more frequently than she does. I don't think there's any other major resentment behind this or anything. I just don't know how else to describe the feeling. So am I the jerk for making plans to go out the same night my wife already has plans to go out, even though I'm covering all arrangements for our daughter for the evening? Edit: not sure why everyone thinks I'm planning on drinking, but I would not be drinking if I went to the birthday. You're the jerk. This is more about the emotional load than logical reasoning. Your wife is likely not going to be enjoying herself the same as she would if you had stayed at home. She isn't necessarily going to worry all night, but she will be aware that your daughter is out of the house. She's going to mentally check in. Now they are driving over. Now she's likely settling down. Now you're picking her up. Time for bed again. Every time she mentally checks in, she exerts a little effort. Maybe she glances out the window to check the weather if it's good for driving. Maybe she checks her watch or phone to see if you called. However, even the energy of simply having thoughts adds up. If your wife is like many parents I know, especially the main caregivers, she's always alert, she's always on. You being home with your daughter doesn't turn that off, but it does lessen the amount that it happens. The mental load of knowing your kid is as safe as possible with their other parent is different from knowing they're driving around and at another house. It doesn't matter how safe it is, travel needs more attention than staying home. You get to go out, you get mental breaks from parenthood. She doesn't get the same breaks. She's asking for one now. You need to decide, does it really matter who's right here? Your wife is unhappy. This is a rare occurrence for her that means a lot, and you see your friends all the time. Even if you think my reasoning is completely irrelevant, is this birthday party really worth it? You're the jerk. She barely goes out. You go out all the time. Why can't you give your wife this one night and spend time with your toddler? I was on the fence until you said that parenting your kid was punishment. Dude, so much you're the jerk. You're the jerk. Really inconsiderate here. Parenting your daughter isn't a punishment. It's what happens when you decide to have a kid with your wife. You go out much more often than she does. Your wife understandably wants you to take care of her for one night, and I totally understand not trusting even family members, if that's the issue. Not the jerk. Switch the roles, and everyone would be saying the opposite. You found adequate care, and your wife is throwing a fit because she wants to be difficult. Imagine if she was the one saying husband is demanding she stay home while he stays out all night. That's Reddit for you. Not the jerk. As a non-American woman, I don't understand why she has to go out at all. Going out with her friends, who are no doubt not in relationships themselves, is how people get involved in actions such as cheating and not remaining faithful. Myself nor any of my married friends do these sorts of things because we know it's not the way to a happy, healthy family life. She should be at home with the kids and being a loving mother, not going out to party, drink, or dance with other men like her friends want her to. It is no wonder to me that so many American men move to my country and start families here. What they have to deal with in their own home country, I find to be so shameful, and I hope more of them move here where we still have traditional family values. Edit. I'm from the Philippines. Second edit. I find it funny when you all say that we just want your men for their money. Salary over $300 US per month is considered rich in my village. But sure, you keep telling yourselves that. Divorce is not even legal here, so he never have to worry about us leaving him and taking everything we can in court, like most of you will. Entitled sister would have me lose my job and my house to attend her destination wedding. My younger sister has always had issues with entitlement, taking advantage of others, throwing fits. Not trying to dispense armchair diagnosis, but she really does check every box of NPD. A few years ago, she announced her engagement to a nice guy who is rather a pushover. He expressed not wanting to get married for a while, but she proposed to him. Not that there's anything wrong with that, and kept pressuring him to get married. He comes from a wealthier family than us and is good with money and investments. Perfect combo for her to take advantage of and have someone bankroll her delusions. He wanted a modest local wedding so friends and family could attend. My sister decided she wanted a destination wedding outside the country. At the time, my husband and I didn't have the best paying jobs. He was working on a second degree, and we had imminent goals of buying our first home together. We respectfully declined her invitation because the trip would cost us $3,000 to $4,000, which we did not have. It would have to go on a credit card. When we RSVP'd no, she said she and her now husband wanted to pay for everything so we could attend. My husband and I were floored because 1, that's a lot of money, and 2, my sister has never been one to offer to pay for anything. We accepted her offer with a lot of gratitude. A couple of months go by, and she asks if my husband and I have booked our airplane tickets and hotels yet, and said, "They just keep getting more expensive the closer they get to the date, you know?" What? I've never expected anyone to just give me anything, but my financial situation hasn't changed. We tell her as much, and she says, "Well, husband and I looked at all the prices a while ago, and it is too much money, so you guys will have to take care of it yourselves." We ignored her and went on with our goals. Months go by, and my husband and I both get better jobs and buy our house. Sister comes back and asks again if we purchased our tickets despite repeatedly telling her no. We tell her again, no, and at this point, with our new jobs, we aren't allowed to take time off yet and don't have enough paid time off anyway. When I started my job, they offered to honor upcoming events if I needed time off, but I had said I didn't need anything since I already planned on not going to the wedding. We didn't have savings and took on a mortgage, so we can't tack on credit card debt too. I was so annoyed with her constant, "Just figure it out," tantrums, and "if you really loved me" speeches. I tried to frame it differently so maybe she could understand. I told her that attending her wedding would mean that we would have to no-show at work, likely lose our jobs, not be able to pay our mortgage, and then lose our home. I said to her, "So you're okay with my husband and I losing our jobs and house and risking homelessness to attend your wedding?" Of course, she didn't have a good answer for that. She has no concept of money because she's always manipulated people into paying for her. She has never been able to hold a job. She has no empathy for others, yet she thinks that she's deserving of special treatment. I don't understand where it comes from because our parents raised us to be hardworking and to not expect crap from anyone. Our parents and my husband and I couldn't afford to attend. My husband's family could and wanted to go, but she wouldn't allow it because it would be weird to only have his family there and not mine. She put up a huge paywall and then blamed us for having to elope and went no contact with us. It was honestly a huge relief after a lifetime of her mistreatment. Edit. When we accepted her offer to pay for our trip, she had said to not worry about anything at all. She said she would book our flight and hotel and everything and to just sit back and relax because she just really wanted us to be present at her wedding. She just gave us dates to put in time off requests at our old jobs so this is why we didn't buy anything with the intention of her reimbursement, and were surprised when she asked us if we had done that stuff yet. Should have known better, since all of that is very unlike her. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that if they give my brother money, I will stop giving them money? I'm 32, female. My brother, who's 35, is horrible. He has multiple baby mamas, and he's a deadbeat. He also is the apple of my mom's eye. He can do no wrong and is just misunderstood. My parents are retired and they're on a fixed budget. I do well for myself and I help them out. I give them maybe $500 a month to help with groceries and bills. Every once in a while, I'll give them some extra for an unexpected expense. No questions asked. My mom asked me for $2,000. I sent it to her. Strangely enough, I ran into my brother at a family wedding I had been told he could not afford to attend because it was a destination wedding. Weird. Funny story, he actually missed the wedding because he hooked up with some random on an excursion and went to their resort. It was our cousin's wedding, and my aunt was upset. She had to make special arrangements to get him included on the trip since he only got the money last minute. She said my mom shouldn't have given him the money if he wasn't going to show up. Then she shut up after she saw the look on my face. I enjoyed the wedding and had a great time. When I got home, I went to see my parents. I asked my mom why she had asked for the $2,000. She lied and said something for the house. I asked what, and she couldn't say. I told her what my aunt said. I told her and my father that from now on, I wanted receipts for any money I gave them. I said I have no problem helping them, but I'll be darned if I work my butt off to give her the money to give to my crappy brother. She started crying, and my dad said they weren't kids and they don't answer to me. I agreed and walked out. I didn't talk to them for 2 months. My aunt called me yesterday and told me that my parents were thinking of going to the food bank since they didn't have any money. I said I had given them $2,000 a couple of months ago, and that was more than my family of 3 spent on food on that time. She said I knew darn well that they had given the money to my brother. I told her that he should probably pay them back then. She said I was being a jerk. Am I the jerk? You're not the jerk. Your parents are. They've created this monster, and now you're supporting him. They're using you as a cash cow. Yes, it's true they don't answer to you, but if you're footing the bill, then they darn well better tell you where the money is going. And your aunt calling you a jerk is funny. If she cares so much about your parents, she should be paying the bill, which I highly doubt because people are always one to talk but never one to sign the check. Stand your ground and let them suffer a little so they understand. They'll be fine. It's not going to hurt them to eat some food from the food bank for once. The big problem here is they have no respect for you or your money or your hard work. The sooner you cut people like that out of your life, the better off you'll be. Entitled babysitter is demanding I pay to have her laptop fixed. I, a single mom of 2, hired a babysitter after I started working my new job. I used to do work from home for 2 years. My kids are 8 and 6. The babysitter is 17. She brings her laptop with her to study, which is perfectly okay with me as long as she keeps an eye on the kids. Yesterday I came home and the babysitter showed me that her laptop had been broken by my youngest. I was shocked. I asked how this happened, and she said that she left the laptop in the living room and went to make the kids lunch, but my youngest grabbed it and ran with it until he dropped it and broke the screen. I said that was horrible and apologized to her, but I did state that it was her fault for leaving the laptop within the reach of the kids. She said she thought my kids were old enough to know not to touch other stuff. I explained how they might have thought it belonged to us since it was in our house. She asked if I could pay for it to be fixed, but I refused and insisted it was her problem, not mine. She ranted about having exams soon and not having enough money to get it fixed. We argued, and I had to tell her to go home after she persisted. Later on, I got a call from her dad, basically blaming the whole thing on me and demanding I pay to get the laptop fixed, but I still refused. Now she's refusing to come again unless I pay for her laptop repair, even though I paid her in advance to watch the kids. You're the jerk. A 6 and an 8-year-old are absolutely old enough to know not to touch other people's stuff or run around with it. Signed, a mother of a 6-year-old. You're the jerk. You pay for what your kids destroy. That's part of being a parent. End of story. You're the jerk. It happened in your home and was done by your kid. Pay up. Or maybe she can sue you and get it off your home insurance in small claims court. You're the jerk. Your kid broke it, and it wasn't an accident either. They're also 6 and 8, not 2 and 4. They knew it was an electronic device, and unless you literally have the exact same computer, they knew that it was hers. Not the jerk. Can't believe all these people telling you that you're the jerk in this situation. What if they had gotten hold of something dangerous? If she had been supervising them the way she was being paid to, this never would have happened. If she tries any funny legal business, reach out to me. I'm a family attorney and we'll take your case pro bono, because this would be a situation in which we can definitely countersue due to the fact that she was not babysitting the way she was supposed to be. I once won my client a settlement for $175,000 by countersuing someone who left their pool gate open. Long story short, people who make foolish decisions will be held accountable in a court of law. My current girlfriend lies to everyone about the plastic surgery she had. My girlfriend and I moved to Europe a few years ago, and she ended up getting a lot of plastic surgery while we were out there that I begged her not to get. She got a nose job, fillers, chin surgery, and I don't even know what all else. I hate to say it, but it decreased her attractiveness. Don't get me wrong, she's still beautiful, but not nearly as gorgeous as what she used to look like. It also just makes me sad that she removed all the features that I loved on her face. It's also sad that people think these are features they need to remove. She looks hollowed out and tired now. But she doesn't want to admit that she got plastic surgery. We're back home from Europe, and people started commenting on her looks at dinner. One of her friends just straight out asked if she got something done, and she said no. She said it was just aging. Of course she was going to look different. She's 27, etc. I was shocked. I couldn't even believe she could play that card when the results are so dramatic. It's so obvious that she was lying, but no one called her out on it. My sister has been staying at my parents' house because I'm here, and she has been weirdly obsessed with her look since that dinner. She's only 24, and she's truly a baby. 24 seems so young now, or at least she makes it seem young. She admitted to me that seeing my girlfriend brought up feelings of anxiety towards aging. She said she didn't know how people could change so much, and it was stressing her out. She started calling me and freaking out about a line she found on her forehead, which was hardly noticeable at all. She isn't a person that's super fixated on her looks, normally at least, so it surprised me. But she was buying a lot of anti-aging skincare and applying it multiple times a day. I told her she was fine. All she had to do was moisturize and wear sunscreen. I mean, I looked the same as I did at 24, but she wasn't buying it, and it was obvious why. It hurt me so much to hear her like that. She kept putting retinol on her face and would ask me daily if I see lines going away when there were no lines in the first place. After a while of her spiraling, one day I finally broke down and said, "Dude, you're freaking out about aging because of my girlfriend. Chill out. She got plastic surgery. You don't just randomly start to have totally different features after you hit 25. You're gonna look exactly how you look now at 27. Relax." She's way too young to be hyperfixating on her looks and worrying about aging. She has an obsessive personality sometimes and gets fixated on things, probably the anxiety disorder. So just telling her that made her drop the subject. Thank God. I told her weeks ago, but last week my girlfriend asked if I told anyone about her plastic surgery. I admitted I did tell my sister because I didn't want to lie about it, and she's very mad at me. Was I wrong to tell her? My girlfriend didn't outright say not to tell people, but it was obvious that she wanted me to lie for her and expected me to do it. Edit. Thank you for your responses. At the end of the day, my sister's well-being and mental health matters to me more than anything or anyone. She's naive, maybe more than you would expect from a 24-year-old, and I feel that I need to protect her. When I told her my girlfriend lied and had plastic surgery, she said, "But I didn't think she would lie to me about that." She looks up to my girlfriend and me a lot. My sister and my girlfriend are both in therapy, and have been for years actually, but that doesn't really stop insecurities. Edit. As for an update on our relationship, I do need to talk to her about the future. I've realized I've lost a lot of respect for her, not because of the plastic surgery and changing her appearance. I had accepted that, but she was fine with lying to my sister and watching her spiral into obsession. I kept bringing it up with her that my sister was struggling, and she would deflect and say a lot of young women care about their looks and she'll get over it. It really rubbed me the wrong way. My sister is my best friend and my only real family. I'd like to think a partner would see how important she is to me and prioritize her mental well-being. But yes, we will talk about it. Thank you for your responses. Not the jerk. When people deny having work done, especially when it's noticeable, people don't tend to believe them anyway. I don't think your girlfriend is fooling anyone. Your sister's well-being and state of mind are more important. Not the jerk. It's not like you rented a billboard and told the world. You told your sister to help her find peace with her self-image. Most people probably know your girlfriend had surgery, but they don't want to embarrass her. Not the jerk. However, I think at this point, you ought to reevaluate how you feel about your partner and whether or not you want to continue this relationship. What if she gets more work done? Would you be comfortable with that? Not the jerk. There's nothing wrong with getting plastic surgery, but lying about it when asked directly is disgusting behavior. Your girlfriend is the jerk. Disgusting behavior? I don't know. I think if someone gets a procedure done and they don't want to tell anybody about it, they don't have to. Oh, you know how these Reddit people are, Karen. If the story had been written from the girlfriend's point of view, of course they'd all be siding with her. That's right. He had no right to tell his sister about your procedure. He's showing you his true colors and that his sister matters to him more than respecting you and your privacy. They've kind of got a herd mentality, like a few people kind of side with OP and everyone else jumps on board, or vice versa. I guess after recording these stories every day for over 5 years, we can read these people like the back of our hand. You're going to lie to the police? Sure, I'll go along with it. So I got into an accident a few days ago. It was minor, but mostly my fault. I was doing a K-turn out of a residential driveway onto a busy street, and while backing up, I hit a car that was speeding to get past. No airbags were deployed, and both cars were completely drivable. This accident happened at about 4:45. In the car was a middle-aged father and mother with a toddler in a car seat in the back next to the door that was hit. This family does not speak English. The father got out of the car and did the immediate, "Look at my damage," that came with the accident. He tells me there's a baby in the back and shows me the still sleeping kid. His wife immediately gets on the phone with who I believe is the police. We pull into a parking lot to get off the busy road and wait. About 20 minutes later, I grabbed their hubcap out of the road and handed it to the gentleman, and he opened the back door again and showed me the sleeping baby. It's now about 5:40, and the couple's niece and her boyfriend show up. They immediately demand money to fix the car, and I told them we'll go through insurance. She asked several times if I really want to go that route, and I told her there was no way I had the money to fix both cars, so insurance it is. She proceeds to call the police at that point. The aunt was on the phone with her and not the police. Ugh, fine. I'll wait even longer for the police to come. Around 6:15, the toddler finally wakes up and starts crying. It's now been asleep for at least an hour and a half and most likely is hungry. At 6:30, the cops show up and ask the niece if the baby needs paramedics, and the niece, who didn't show up until almost an hour after the initial collision, starts to lie to the police about how the baby has been crying since the accident and to send them. I've been in a few accidents over my years as a driver, and now I'm starting to smell what this really is. Insurance scam. I looked through my dash cam and was able to prove they sped through a red light right before the driveway where I turned from. When the cop came to ask me what happened, I told him my side of the events and showed him the dash cam, proving the light was red in the direction they claimed to be coming from. For good measure, I told the police that the baby only started crying about 15 minutes prior to when they got there. The niece started screaming that I was lying. I then told the police officer, if what she says is true, then I'd like to make a claim against them for endangerment. They claimed the baby was crying for the last 2 hours from the accident, and never once did they call 911 for medical assistance. They called their niece to come here instead of emergency services and only asked for them after they were offered. The car seat also isn't center mounted like required by state law and should be cited. At that point, the niece is calling me every name in the book, like she just found I cheated on her from Jerry Springer. I then calmly tell the officer that my dash cam was running the entire time we were stopped, and I had it recorded from when the kid woke up. The officer looked at her and said, "Ma'am, it's a crime to lie on a police report. Was the baby crying since the accident?" All of a sudden, she now had to check with her aunt and uncle to find out. She withdrew her claim, and the officer tossed out her witness statement because she wasn't an actual witness to anything. Hopefully, no BS lawsuit comes from this. Am I the jerk for telling our mutual friends the real reason behind a cat adoption? I, 28 female, recently agreed to foster a cat who I was told had massive behavior issues and was going to be taken to an animal shelter if I didn't agree. I expected spitting, hissing, biting, not litter box trained, etc. Cat arrived with nothing to her name. Cat is 5 years old. No box, bowls, toys, food, nothing but a flea collar that was clearly months old and too tight. Cat was absolutely filthy. Ex-owner told me they couldn't provide money at the time for me to set the cat up, and I allowed it as I had been told they were in a nasty financial position. We agreed to keep a tab of vet bills and food bills to be paid. As they're leaving, she mentions the case of white claws she stopped to pick up on the way. I was gobsmacked. I set about getting what the cat needed and began to try to gauge its behavior. Turns out this animal is the sweetest, smartest, kindest being I've ever had the pleasure to know. Took Cat to the vet, and cat is incredibly ill and underweight. Got her medical shampoo for her skin, antibiotics for the massive infection she has, and then called her ex-owner and told her to send me her microchip details as I would be keeping the cat. She says that's fine. Cat was never chipped anyway. Doesn't pay anything but $40 of the bills. 2 days later, turns up at her job with hair and nails done. I sat on it for 6 weeks and stewed until I found out she had been speaking to someone about a kitten. I didn't embellish anything. I simply told 2 of my closest friends what happened and why the cat stayed with me. The truth spread like wildfire, and most people have now turned their back on her. My only intent was to stop her from getting another animal, not for it to end up like this. I feel like I could be the jerk because this has affected her work and friendships. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I want to assure all of you that she will be okay. We're in for several surgeries, corrective and necessary, for a long recovery. But I've got her every step of the way. She will have the best of everything forever. Update. Unfortunately for me, the fallout of telling people the actual reason eventually led to myself and my ex splitting. Fortunately, I think it was by far the best outcome. I ended up naming her Frisia, and she is still the light of my life. For the last year and a half, we've battled hard to get her healthy. She's had her shoulder and jaw realigned, 6 teeth removed due to extreme dental issues, and we finally managed to get her ear infections under control after 9 rounds of medication and surgical cleaning. I spent around $5,000 getting these issues fixed, and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. She has also gone from being extremely underweight, 2.6 pounds, to a healthy 7.7 pounds. She's my baby, my world, and it's hard to imagine what my life would be like without her. Previously, she would only eat the worst food you could buy. We've managed to get her to eat premium grade wet and dry food, as well as transition onto eating some real food, fish and chicken. She plays now, loves anything that has feathers, and is always extremely grateful for any new thing that she's given, be it a small toy or a new cat stand. She has 2 sisters now and 2 dog brothers who she loves to terrorize. She has become the sky is awake, so I'm awake, so get up, kid. No sleep-ins allowed. She's my teddy bear and sleeps in a king-size bed every night. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-wife that she was the one who ruined our daughter's birthday? I have 2 kids from my ex-wife, a son who's 16 and daughter who's 20. They're entirely different when it comes to academics. Our daughter did well in school, straight A student, she did sports and wants to be a lawyer. Our son struggles more when it comes to school, doesn't do sports, doesn't know what he wants to do once he graduates. The 2 of them aren't close at all. It was my daughter's birthday yesterday, and we had a fairly large party for her. My side of the family, my ex's side of the family, and my daughter's friends. When it was time to cut the cake, my ex made a speech, talking about our daughter's accomplishments and how she'll be successful in the future. At the end of the speech, she said something along the lines of, "Hopefully my son gets his act together and gets better grades," which made our son visibly upset. Ex noticed that our son was upset, and she continued to push the issue, saying that she was worried and that he wouldn't have a future if he kept this up. By then, the party was already tense. Some of the family chimed in and took my ex's side. My son was arguing back and insulted his sister in the process. The party was ruined at this point, which upset our daughter. After the mess ended, my ex-wife came to me saying that we needed to get our son's jealousy issues under control because he shouldn't have ruined his sister's birthday like this. I reminded her that the party wouldn't have been ruined if she didn't bring up our son during her speech about our daughter. She claims I'm making things worse. Most of my side and her side of the family side with my ex, saying my ex didn't ruin it by being a concerned mother. I don't see what they're concerned about. Our son is on track to graduate. His grades are just average. But I have all these texts saying my son needs to apologize or that he needs therapy for the insults he said to his sister. Am I the jerk? Edit. After he insulted his sister, my ex asked if he cared about his sister at all, and he responded saying he didn't and that he didn't care what happens to her. That's why they think he needs therapy. Edit. I don't know how my daughter feels about the whole situation. She didn't say anything as she left the party, and she's not answering my texts or calls right now. You're not the jerk, but your ex-wife definitely is. There was absolutely no need for her to publicly take a shot at him like this. Of course he would get upset when she calls him out in front of all the extended family. You should talk to your son and let him know that you're there for him and support him. Not the jerk. I bet she'll be shocked when your son goes no contact with her. Honestly, she's awful. If I were your son, I would no longer interact with her. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-wife we aren't a team and I'm the only one who can make parenting decisions? I've been extremely conflicted after this last argument with my ex. I don't want to diminish her accomplishments, and I hope it doesn't come across that way in the post. That being said, when I was young, I married who I thought was my soulmate, and we had 2 kids together, a daughter and a son. Unfortunately, I did not know my wife was an addict when we married. She hid it extremely well until a few years in. I began noticing patterns and eventually confronted her. We split when the oldest was 3. She signed over custody. I know she ended up becoming homeless a while after our split because her parents didn't want anything to do with her. Did not know anything besides that. She contacted me about a year back and told me she was 3 years sober, had a stable job and a home. I checked with her family and everything, and yeah, she was telling the truth. She really wanted to meet her kids, and while I was a little upset at the her kids line, I eventually decided it wasn't my decision to make and left it up to the kids, who are now 16 and 17. They decided they wanted to meet her, and that was that. They've been hanging out with her about twice a week, and I let her come over for dinner almost every night. No sleepovers at her place as of now. So far, they've kind of had the aunt relationship with her, but they do seem to be enjoying it. Which brings me to our conflict. I'm far from being a great dad, but I honestly believe that I'm a good dad. I've built trust with my kids through therapy and heart-to-hearts over the years. They're fairly popular at their school, and they recently got invited to a party that I gave them the go-ahead to go to. I've spoken to them about the dangers of alcohol and drugs, etc., and they know that I'm always available to pick them up in a situation they don't want to be in. They also know why me and their mother split up. My kids came home around 11 and just gave me the teen-type rundown. Who was there, they couldn't believe who did what, blah blah blah. They also were honest with me and told me that they tried Jell-O shots, which they thought were gross. That was the end of that. They weren't drunk, they weren't buzzed, they tried a drink and that was that. They were there for about 2 hours and came home. Well, I guess they brought up the party in front of their mother that following breakfast meetup. She was livid. She tried to ground them from electronics and socializing for 2 weeks. They said it was really awkward and asked me to pick them up without much of the details. While they were waiting in the car, I spoke to her, and when she told me, I honestly laughed. I asked her what gave her the right. She responded that she really wants to be a mother to her kids and I should give her the chance to parent, that she's giving 100% to make this work. I told her it's way too late for that. The kids are basically adults. They have part-time jobs. They pay for their phone bills and clothes, by choice, and are deep into their plans for adulthood. She then told me I was robbing her chance to make things right and asked what was the point of letting her into their lives if I wasn't letting her be a mom. That we needed to be a team because she needs my support. And here's where I might be the jerk. I told her the kids are well past the age of asking me why mommy doesn't love them when crawling into my bed at night, and that she was welcome to leave again. And as far as being a team, the only team is me and my kids. I'm their parent. They listen to me and respect me because I've listened to and respected them their whole lives. We have not spoken since then, now going on a week and a half. She has still texted the kids good morning and good night messages, but has skipped 2 meetups they usually have so far. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She needs to know her place. It's great she got clean, but she missed out on basically their entire childhood. She now needs to accept she won't have that mother-kid relationship with them like she wants to. You're just being honest. If you haven't put in the work and been there, almost adult teens don't need you getting involved. And it doesn't matter how much you want to participate if it's your own choices in life that made you lose that relationship. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for not saving my girlfriend's driver's license and refusing to drive her to and from work? I'm 28, male. My girlfriend is 26, and she's always late. Always. No matter if it's 5 minutes up the road or catching a plane. Before we get into it, no, she isn't on the spectrum. She doesn't have ADHD or time blindness. She just dawdles all the time. She snoozes her alarm at least 3 times every morning, then lays there going through her social media. Eventually, she gets up and takes a long shower, dresses, which takes her forever, and she usually sits wrapped in a towel on her phone, then lingers over her coffee. 9 times out of 10, she's running late for work and ends up speeding to make it on time. Naturally, she's gotten a number of speeding tickets. I've tried to help her. Example, putting her phone where she can't reach it from bed, so she has to get up to snooze it, but she literally just grabs it and goes back to bed. You try to get her to get up, and she just digs her heels in and takes even longer. Her response to people calling out her lateness is, "Better late than right on time." So she was running even later than normal for work and really had to speed to make it. A week goes by, and sure enough, massive speeding fine in the mail. She now has to hand in her driver's license because she's got so many demerit points. she'll be without one for 6 months. Instead of just dealing with it, she tells me, "I'll need you to cop this one and say you were driving so I don't lose my license." And of course, I refused, telling her that she needs to live with the consequences of her actions and maybe she should stop speeding and wake up earlier. This argument went on for a few days until she finally conceded, then proceeds to tell me, "Well, you'll have to drive me to and from work until I get my license back." And I tell her I won't be doing that. Her work is literally in another direction than my work is from home, and doing so would add another 2 hours of driving per day. She says it shouldn't matter as my work has flexible hours, but I stood my ground and refused, and said she can take public transport. There's literally a bus stop 2-minute walk from our house, and the bus stops maybe 5 minutes from her work, and it's quite regular. She says she hates public transport and refuses to ride it, so I said then it's Uber for her, or organize a carpool, but bottom line, it's not my responsibility. She called me a jerk and is giving me the silent treatment, said a decent boyfriend would go to those lengths for her and that it's only 6 months. So, am I the jerk for saving her license and refusing to drive her to and from work for 6 months? Edit. We live in Brisbane, Australia, for those wondering. Update. She told me all her friends think I'm the jerk, which is a big part of why I came here in the first place. After seeing the response here, I messaged a few of them, and the ones she actually did contact said not the jerk. As for why I'm still with her, I'm starting to question that myself. I've not been really happy with her the last few months, and this is starting to make me question the entire relationship. Update 2. So today I asked her if she looked at the train and bus timetables, and she hit me with, "OMG, you seriously aren't going to help me? You really expect me to catch public transport?" Reflecting on this and past behavior, and her attitude towards the whole thing, I'm going to break up with her. Living with each other is a job interview for marriage. Imagine being married to someone so self-centered. OP is dodging a bullet. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter not to spend money on her classroom because it makes the rest of us look bad? I'm a first-grade teacher, and my daughter is a preschool teacher. She's a second-year teacher. She was teaching assistant for a while until she got the credits required to teach. Her school opened a second location with 1 classroom, and she currently runs the location 12 to 6:30 every day. When she started working at the school, I noticed she was running to the Dollar Tree or Walmart to grab little things for her classroom, like hair ties, stickers, beads, or string. She said she didn't mind because it was all cheap and made her job easier. Then when she got her own classroom, she really started buying stuff for her classroom often. She got 24 outfits to store in her class, 3 in each size from 2 to 5 for the kids, in case the parents forgot to send new clothes. She bought a box of pull-ups in case they need those. She bought extra snacks, extra jackets and socks, a pair of combs and brushes, extra nap bedding, and bins of what she calls stalling activities, easy things she can pull out when she needs to stall. She even has Halloween costumes in case one of her students doesn't have one, and she gives away the blankets and jackets if she thinks a student needs them. I told her that all of this is excessive, and she should leave it up to the owner of the school to get these things. She said the owner says these things aren't necessary, but they don't cost much, and they make her classroom run smoother. I told her that if the owner says it's unnecessary, don't get these things and let her see how the class runs without them. I told her I don't spend any money on my classroom, and that if my principal isn't willing to buy it, the kids don't need it. She says it's different because I work at a $30,000 per year private school, and she teaches in a more lower income community, but I still told her it's not her responsibility. I also told her that her buying stuff for her classroom makes all of us that don't look bad, but she doesn't care. She's upset with me for being pushy, but I'm just doing what's best for her. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Let her do nice things for those kids who don't have the luxury of attending a private school. I think you're being a bit paranoid that stocking her low-income classroom with goodies could make your private classroom look bad. Look bad to who exactly? Are your private school kids taking field trips to your daughter's school? The answer is to herself. The only judgment she's feeling right now is on her own self-judgment. She's realized that she's a worse, less caring person than her daughter, and it's easier for her to try to hide the evidence by convincing her daughter to be less charitable than her so she can make her be the kind of person she wishes she was. You're the jerk. You're really not doing what's best for her. You're doing what's best for you. She told you it helps her classroom run smoother. She doesn't mind, and it works for her. Why do you feel the need to control your daughter, her career, and how she chooses to run it? Why would you choose to be unsupportive? You obviously raised a selfless, kind, generous, and upstanding woman, and you're literally trying to force your ways onto her to be the opposite. Why? because you wouldn't do it says more about you than her. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. Your daughter is wasting her hard-earned money on things she's not responsible for. You are speaking to her from a point of logic and reason. Of course, Reddit is going to tell you that you're wrong. They are all obsessed with playing victim, and they hate any ideas that relate to logic and reason. They would much rather a preschool teacher waste her money on things that will not benefit her than to say, invest in building a stock market portfolio, or make extra payments towards her student loans, which Reddit thinks nobody should have to pay, or to get her car note paid off sooner, or save up for a down payment for a house. There are two ways to live one's life, the smart way or the Reddit way. Live your life the Reddit way, and you will be no better off than these self-proclaimed victims who have nothing to show for themselves and who spend all day complaining about how much they hate landlords. Am I the jerk for returning my daughter's birthday cake after I discovered that my wife had made changes to it? I, 37 male, have a daughter who's now 13, Olivia, from my former relationship. Currently, I'm married to my wife who has a daughter, Brittany, who's 16. So, Brittany is the opposite of Olivia. For example, Brittany is a social kid, Olivia is introverted. The list is long, but they're just the complete opposite. Olivia's 13th birthday was 2 days ago. She loves chocolate, and I decided this is the flavor I was going to go with when I contacted the bakery. However, my wife objected since Brittany absolutely hates chocolate and suggested we go with vanilla. I said no way, because for one, Olivia hates vanilla, and it's also her birthday, so she gets to have her cake with her favorite flavor. My wife got upset and took it as in I had no regard for Brittany and that we should just choose another neutral flavor instead. I shut that down and said no more discussing this because I'd already decided to go with what Olivia wanted. At the day of the birthday, I was supposed to get the cake, but I was surprised to see my wife coming home after picking up the cake from the bakery. I looked at it and discovered that it wasn't a chocolate cake, but a vanilla cake with a small piece of chocolate on top. I got upset, thinking they got my order wrong, and I was about to contact them. But my wife said that there was no mistake and that she called the bakery the day before and made slight changes to the cake to please both of them. I was stunned. I lost it on her and asked her why she did that. She got defensive, saying that birthdays are no excuse to show favoritism and that her daughter is watching and observing how I'm treating both of them. I told her off since I was the one paying, then called the bakery and explained what had happened. I had the cake returned and replaced with a chocolate cake, although this one is smaller, but it was fine. My wife declined to take part in the celebration, and later we got into a huge argument where she called me controlling and selfish for returning the cake instead of using this opportunity to teach Olivia to compromise so that everyone's happy. Now I'm teaching her to be selfish. I said that my daughter gets to act selfish on her birthday, and that she, my wife, was teaching her daughter to be entitled. Word for word, and it led to a bigger argument. We're not talking as of now. Am I the jerk for returning the cake and not taking my wife's input into consideration? Not the jerk. It's Olivia's birthday, not Brittany's birthday. The cake should be the flavor of what the birthday kid wants. This is a special day for Olivia. Therefore, there doesn't really need to be fairness between your daughters. I don't like chocolate, but when it's my sister's birthday, we get chocolate because it's what she likes. I get over it because it's her special day. Your wife is a jerk for going behind your back. The cake was basically vanilla to make Brittany happy, with tiny bits of chocolate for the birthday girl. Why can't Brittany learn to compromise? She's older, and she should know that she can't get what she wants on a day that's not her birthday. Not the jerk. But OP, do you see the red flags? A birthday cake is for the person whose birthday it is. It's not selfish or demeaning to get the person's favorite flavor. Your stepdaughter could have had a vanilla cupcake. But no, your wife made the point to go behind your back and to change it for her daughter. Your wife talks about how her daughter is observing how you treat her. So your daughter doesn't matter? Your daughter could see a stepmom who doesn't give a hoot about her. Hypocrisy much? You did well in changing the cake, but you have way bigger problems in your home. The fact that she did this so flagrantly tells me that she's been messing with you for a while. You probably just now caught on to it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. I don't know how anyone could not like chocolate cake. Then again, I don't know how anyone couldn't like vanilla either. They're both just so good. Won a lawsuit against a guy who tried to force me out of business because I broke his local monopoly. I'm 26 years old, and I decided to open my own business this year. Moving forward in this post, I should point out that I am from a small town of about 1,000 people in the rural Midwest. Because of this, everyone has some sort of connection with someone. We went to one of the liquor stores in the closest city about 30 minutes away, in a small city of 8,000 people. When we were grabbing some drinks for a party, I was looking at the prices and saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of local beer, we were charged $15. I was thinking about this and figured that I could probably make bank opening a liquor store. Back in February, I was furious about my crappy job and thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to be the president of the local bank. He told me, "Hey, with the lockdown, the bank has been struggling to find customers to give out loans. Right now, the bank is giving loans for cheap." A couple of weeks later, I went in and met with my friend's mom, and I pitched my idea with the research I had done on alcohol prices, potential demand, and estimated income. I got the loan at a fantastic interest rate. I bought a building, which happened to be the former bank, and hired my dad to help me renovate the building. My dad is a general contractor, and he gave me an excellent quote on materials and labor. After working everything out with the distributors, getting the proper licenses, and getting my paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I had started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talk with my distributors, I learned, even with inflation and everything else, the liquor stores in this city had like an 80% markup. I talked to a local business owner, and he suggested that I have around a 35 to 40% markup. Because of this, I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store, and I had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. My hometown is near a national forest. As such, we have a ton of people who come up for weekends for recreational activities year-round. My first week, the week before Memorial Weekend, after opening, I made a $4,000 profit. It was great being my own boss. If someone was rude to me or my girlfriend, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can do your business elsewhere." Did the gang and I run out of drinks? Time to grab my keys, not car keys, the store keys. My apartment is like 2 blocks away, and go to the store. That's not to say that it wasn't difficult running my own business, especially that my only employee was my girlfriend, and we were both working 6 or 7 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both manager, accountant, and cashier, but it's so much nicer knowing I can tell someone to buzz off for being a jerk. Couple of weeks after Memorial Day, some old guy walks into my store a couple of minutes after I opened. He seemed friendly enough, but eventually he offered to buy my store. I'm not going to say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I rejected the proposal outright and refused to negotiate the sum higher. He walked out of my store saying, "Well, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer." The next month, a guy walked into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy I had never heard of for libel. After he left, I was freaking out, and I decided that I was going to close early. When I got home, I Googled the guy and soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that this is the guy who owns both of the liquor stores in the nearby city. It also just so happens that he's on the city council. With a little bit of further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, "Any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, tavern, or liquor dispensary will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol." Later, I discovered that the same guy happens to be the head of the board which approves liquor licenses. I love small-town corruption. Either way, I had a major issue. My maternal uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state. I decided to call him and try to get some legal advice. I talked to him and read the documents that I had been handed and served over the phone, and the research I had done. After receiving all the information I had read off, I was expecting to get some sort of advice, but instead heard, "Hang on, I gotta make a call," and he hung up. I'm freaking out. I was actually about to post my first post to r/legal advice. I'll be honest, I just wanted someone to tell me it was going to be okay, and I didn't need to crawl to this guy on my hands and knees. As I was writing the title, my uncle called back. "Hey OP, I just got off the phone with my partner. He agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you would like to accept, we can discuss at my office tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 states. So we meet and we discuss the case. It turns out the guy had filed the libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. He claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his and his business reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but Uncle assured me that we would win this case no problem. 3 weeks later, the case is dismissed, but after my uncle says, "People like that guy will likely try to file another suit against you. If that happens, call me, and I promise I'll help." The next day, I get served again, but this time, I'm the defendant. Not my store, me. I swear, I look at the documentation and the only thing that changed was instead of my business name, mine is listed as the defendant. Same thing happens. 4 weeks later, the case is dismissed. Over the next 3 months, I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th case's hearing, we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were sitting in this room. Judge says, "You two have been in court 4 times already. Is there any way we can come to an agreement that'll stop this cycle of faulty litigation?" The guy's lawyer says they have an offer and hand it to my uncle, who then hands it to me. It essentially read that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of the remaining loan principal. I outright rejected the offer and I made a counteroffer. I said, "If you drop this case, I won't sue you for harassment." He busts out laughing. "Sue me? With what money? The legal fees alone ought to have drained you. You should be happy I chose to extend this offer and not sue you into bankruptcy and buy that place from the bank when they foreclose on you." The judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason I was getting sued. My uncle straight out said to him, "Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently you were never told. I have taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he has spent on your litigations is gas. And bluntly, sir, I think your outburst has just ensured a suit against you." After that, we just left, and I was then informed a few days later the litigation was dropped. Right then, my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against the guy. I want to sue the guy for a very high amount to try and get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. Although my uncle warned me that we'll need to be careful because if we set the damages too high, it'll look like we're just being vindictive. This suit won't be pro bono, but after getting sued 5 times for free essentially, I'm not going to complain. Looking back on this, I'm so thankful that my friends and family supported the entire way, especially my uncle. Without my uncle, I would have absolutely lost my business. My Karen mother-in-law cleans my house without asking and demands to be paid for it. I, female 31, gave birth to my beautiful son a week ago. Unfortunately, there were some complications, so I was only released yesterday, but I'm so grateful to be home with our baby. When my water initially broke, my husband, who's 33, and I were at home, and I happened to be standing on my bedroom carpet. Cleaning was obviously not the priority, so I threw some towels down and we left for the hospital. During the time we were in the hospital, my mother-in-law, who's 59, kindly offered to feed our dogs for us, and we were very appreciative of her help. It was only once we got home yesterday that I saw my mother-in-law had left a receipt and a note stuck to the fridge, saying that she had cleaned my bedroom carpet and wanted to be reimbursed. She had also taken it upon herself to clean the rest of the house while she was at it, and all in all, would like a day's pay at $25 per hour plus $200 worth of products. Now, while it was nice of her to clean my carpet and then the rest of the house, neither of us asked her to do this. My husband wrote her the following text. "Hello, Mom. We really appreciate your help over the last few days while OP was in the hospital. It was great having someone over to look after the dogs. We noticed your note and receipt on the fridge, and we're a little upset that you took it upon yourself to 1. Snoop through the house, as neither of us had told you about OP's water breaking in the bedroom, and 2. Go out and buy hundreds of dollars worth of cleaning products, and 3. Charging us for your time and the aforementioned products. We would also like to ask where these cleaning supplies are, as if we're paying for them, we would certainly like to get our money's worth. When we entrusted you with the dogs, we really thought you were helping us out of the goodness of your heart and not giving you an opportunity to make a quick buck. We are family, and we're hurt that you would do something like this while OP was so unwell." My mother-in-law immediately responded to my husband, saying that she did what she did out of the kindness of her heart, and she cannot believe we would be so ungrateful. I've also received some texts from extended family members saying that mother-in-law didn't have to help me, but did so despite her advanced age out of love. I've had to turn off my phone so that I don't have to deal with all of the texts, but my husband is still getting a lot of hate from his family because we are manipulating the situation and making mother-in-law the bad guy when she was only trying to get the house ready for the baby. I'm quite upset by this whole thing, but my husband is now saying that maybe we should pay her to get the extended family off our back and just enjoy this time as new parents rather than dealing with all of this. I'm not okay with paying his mom for anything. She sent another text to my husband earlier saying she would be happy to gift us the products, take it off the bill, but she would still like to be paid for her time given that she dealt with a biohazard. Not the jerk. It's only help if the recipient actually wants it. Otherwise, it's imposing yourself on them. Charging for it is only doubling down on the problem because now it's forcing unwanted commercial services on you. If she's done it out of the kindness of her heart, the most she could possibly ask for is the cleaning supplies because that's the only thing she is out financially, and I'd even be giving that the side eye. The kindness of one's heart doesn't come with a price tag. My Karen girlfriend keeps choosing my dad over me. What should I do? My girlfriend, Shay, who's 27, and I, male 26, are on a small vacation to my hometown. She's only ever met my dad and extended family, my aunt, uncle, and cousins, over the phone, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to introduce everyone properly. But since we've arrived, Shay's behavior towards my dad has been seriously off-putting. For example, I thought it would be fun if we all went horseback riding. My younger cousins do it as a hobby, so I thought it would be nice to do an activity we'd all like. But Shay wouldn't even get on the horse because she said she was scared. It's been years since I've been on a horse, but they were so calm and honestly not a problem at all. I offered to stay with her while the others enjoyed themselves, but she insisted I go because my dad already offered to stay behind. He doesn't usually go horseback riding either. It was weird that she didn't want me there too, but I let it be. There have been other instances too, like how she asked my dad to show her around town instead of staying with me and meeting my old friend from high school. It was an impromptu meetup. We literally ran into him while we were looking for somewhere to get lunch with my dad, but it would have been nice if she made the effort to get to know him instead of going out with my dad. The final straw was when we were all at my aunt's house for dinner. Shay made cupcakes, baking is kind of her thing, and she made some chocolate and peanut butter ones specifically because they're my dad's favorite. She made a few different types of cupcakes, but none of the others were my other relatives' favorite flavors. When we got back to our Airbnb, I confronted her. I know Shay's dad left when she was a teen and they're no contact, so I figured she might be clinging to my dad because it's nice to have a fatherly presence and not something that she's used to. I asked her, jokingly, to rein in her daddy issues and to stop being so clingy with my dad. She blew up at me, telling me that she's trying her best to fit in and that I've put no effort in making her feel welcome. Neither of us were willing to compromise, and I ended up sleeping somewhere else for the night. I need to talk things out with her today, but before I do, I want to make sure I'm not the one in the wrong. Sorry, bud. I think you're the one with the daddy issues. I don't see anything wrong about the way she was acting towards your dad based on what you described. So you're mad because your girlfriend was too nice to your dad and was trying too hard to fit in and be friendly? That makes absolutely zero sense. The horseback riding thing is totally normal. She doesn't like riding and didn't want you to miss out. 2. You wanted to blow off plans with your dad to visit your friend. This is rude to me, and she didn't want your dad bailed on. Brownie points to her for trying to be polite to your family. 3. Cupcakes. Why do you care? It's a nice gesture she made a bunch for everyone in your family. I want to hear more about how she feels, and why is she saying you haven't made her feel included or welcome? She's the one in a new environment trying to impress people. That's stressful, and you're being weird about this. OP. My aunt and uncle are just as important, and so are my cousins. My mom isn't around anymore, so my aunt is the biggest female influence I have in my life. Shay knows this, but hasn't put in any thought to spending more time with her. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought bonding with her would have been more of a prime focus. I'm not insecure about this. It's just undeniably strange that she's doing so much to spend time with my dad and not putting in that much effort with my other family members. No, it's really weird that you bailed on hanging out with your dad to hang out with some guy you went to high school with. OP. They were one of my best friends in high school, and we both, unfortunately, lost touch with each other in our college years. Also, my dad said it was fine for us both to go with my friend. He really didn't care about it. Okay, so if she is an outsider, which admittedly she is, why would she blow off meeting an old friend of mine and learning about these old stories and memories? If the roles were reversed, I would love to chat with one of her old friends and see what she was like before we met, get some funny stories about back in the day, etc. Out of curiosity, where did you end up sleeping? I slept at a friend's house. A few people live there, so before you ask, it wasn't like I was having some one-on-one time with someone else. A female friend? There's 6 people who live there. Of course a few of them were women, but they weren't why I was staying there. Has your dad stolen a girlfriend before? Do you have a reason to not trust him? Also, it makes sense she would make cupcakes for the primary parent and not extended family. OP. No, my father has never stolen one of my girlfriends before. This isn't some soap opera. As for the cupcake thing, I get where you're coming from, but the only family I have is my dad, aunt, uncle, and 3 cousins. That's it. And yet she only made my dad's favorite. Even if she made my dad's and the other relatives' favorite, I would say that's fair, but it's the fact that everything revolves around my dad is what made me question it. Wrongfully so, according to the comments, which I accept. Update. Okay, I get it, I'm wrong. Even though a lot of you were really harsh in the comments of my last post, I appreciate the honesty and I think I needed it. I read every comment and I understand it was wrong of me to joke about a potentially triggering topic around my girlfriend. Me joking about it was a jerk thing to do, and any concerns I had, I should have said it in a much better way. I went back to the Airbnb today, and you'll never guess who was there with my girlfriend. Yes, it was my father. He was in the kitchen cleaning up what looked like leftovers from breakfast. He said he stopped by a cafe that's at the end of the street and bought us breakfast, but I wasn't there when he arrived. By that point, Shay told him everything about our argument, and he wasn't happy. Where was Shay when I arrived back? My dad said she was in the shower and getting ready, and that they were going to my aunt's house looking for me. They both presumed that's where I was, considering I wasn't at the Airbnb, nor was I with my dad. We talked and I helped him clean up their breakfast. While I did, I saw the receipt in the to-go bag. Considering the cafe he bought the breakfast is in literally 5 to 10 minutes away, and he came straight from there to the Airbnb, it's safe to assume he spent at least 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours at the Airbnb before I arrived. But sure, that's normal. I didn't bring this up or even question it. I've learned my lesson about bringing up stupid and immature concerns. My dad reiterated a lot of the things people said in my post, like how Shay didn't want me to miss out on the horseback riding, that she wanted to give me time with my friend without being the third wheel, and he said that his favorite recipe flavor came up while they were walking around town together. It was an embarrassing conversation, and while we didn't discuss everything I wanted, it's a start. When my dad left, I spoke to Shay and apologized. She was really quiet, and when we talked about it further, she was crying a lot. The only thing she really said is that we have underlying issues from before this vacation and that this whole ordeal just adds to it. We were supposed to go to a game night at my aunt and uncle's tonight, but Shay said she isn't going and that she wants some time to think. I respect that. I don't know if Shay wants me to stay at the Airbnb tonight or not, but I'm glad she didn't immediately break up with me like some of you suggested. My dude, I hope you see this. Your whole story reads like you either have self-confidence issues or you've had the wool over your eyes before, presumably not involving your dad. What you are creating here is called a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're looking for a problem that isn't there and potentially creating the catalyst to make it or something like it actually happen. For whatever reason, you don't trust your girlfriend here, and if there are underlying issues from before this trip, I get the feeling you might not have trusted her ever. She's in this relationship for a reason, dude, and the reason is not your dad. Look past your insecurities and discover what you've got here before it's too late. OP, I don't have any self-confidence issues, but I'll take what you said and really think about it. I didn't think there were any issues between me and my girlfriend before this trip. She's been nothing but supportive of me, and I always imagined a future with her. The insinuation that something happened when Dad was there for a few hours for breakfast with, "But sure, that's normal." Maybe I'm naive, but he came with food for all 3 of them and then potentially helped console girlfriend while waiting for OP to arrive, especially as they didn't know when OP would arrive and he would normally wake up earlier. I could absolutely see my parents doing that if I pulled something like this with a partner. OP is either super insecure or just really wanted to justify cheating on his girlfriend by being able to say his girlfriend was trying to hook up with his dad. Either way, get therapy, because wow, what are you even doing? OP was not overreacting. It's obvious that his girlfriend had daddy issues and was throwing herself at his dad. And of course, the dad is loving it because he's an old guy who probably doesn't get much attention. So his son's girlfriend throwing herself at him like this, dude was just loving every bit of it. OP should have seen this red flag for what it was and found someone who had some respect for him and wouldn't throw herself at his dad. She should be choosing you, bro, not your dad. And for everyone saying you're in the wrong, would they still feel that way if dad's new girlfriend was throwing herself at you and choosing you over your dad? Actually, they would probably love that. All these people are backwards. Am I the jerk for giving my daughter a name my grandma hates? I, 27 female, gave birth to me and my husband's, 31 male, first baby almost 2 months ago. She's perfect, and I was so excited to have my family meet her. I have 3 older sisters who all have kids as well. A fun tradition that my family does is to have a small get-together once the baby is about 2 to 3 months old. We don't announce the baby's name until after the birth to make it a surprise. At the little party, we give the parents a bunch of little gifts that have the new baby's name on them. My grandmother always quilts a beautiful baby blanket and embroiders the baby's name. She's done this for all my sisters and cousins. The issue is the name my husband and I chose for our daughter. For context, my grandma has a unique history with her own name. She was born as Lucille, but from the time she was 8, she told every single person she met that her name was Barbara. She did this for years, until even her family called her Barbara. She even got her name legally changed. When I was a kid, I asked her why she changed it. She simply said she liked Barbara better. It became a family joke, but she never seemed upset about it and always laughed with us. My husband's grandmother raised him from when he was a baby to when she passed away when he was 19. Her favorite celebrity was Lucille Ball. She and her husband used to watch I Love Lucy all the time together. He misses her very much and said that he would love to honor her in some way. Her name was Mary, but we chose to have that as our daughter's middle name. We decided that Lucy is a name we both loved and would honor his grandmother and maybe make mine chuckle a bit. After I gave birth, me and my husband were FaceTiming my entire family when we announced the name. A few of my relatives laughed and said it was cute, but my grandma was dead silent. When I asked her what was wrong, she demanded to know why I chose Lucy. I was shocked and confused. I began to try and explain, but she suddenly hung up. This greatly dampened the mood. My grandma wouldn't answer any calls from me afterwards. I asked my oldest sister, and she said that my grandma was apparently offended and thought we were mocking her. She said she's not coming to the party in a few weeks to meet my daughter in person and that she's not giving the baby quilt to us unless we apologize and change our daughter's name. I don't know why it's escalated so much. My grandma has always been kind. I have no idea what to do. Births in my family are always celebrated and happy events, but this has ruined it. I almost feel like some of my relatives are ignoring me because they don't want to pick sides, but I don't even understand why there's a fight. Dealing with this along with my newborn has been incredibly stressful. My family is puzzled as well, but most of them are saying I shouldn't have chosen a name I knew my grandmother disliked, or at least asked her about it first. Am I the jerk? Edit. I've seen a lot of comments asking why I didn't even think to ask my grandmother about the name, or why I would pick the name she obviously disliked. Like I said earlier, when I was a kid, she just said she liked Barbara better. That's what I've known my whole life, so I didn't really dig into it much. Now I feel like an idiot. I honestly never intended to hurt her feelings. I never even considered that she changed it for any deeper reason than just an aesthetic preference. I don't know too much specifically about any childhood issues she had, but I do know her dad passed when she was about 6, so maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not planning to ask her for specifics because I don't want to open any more old wounds that I already have. For now, I'm taking a few comment suggestions, and I've been planning to write her a handwritten note apologizing, explaining everything, and asking to talk. She has a bit of a hard time with technology, so I think this will be a good way to show I genuinely want to discuss this and never meant to hurt her. I'm still not entirely sure about what to do with our name, but for now, my #1 priority is getting into contact with her and fixing our relationship. Another question that I've seen a lot is why my husband and I didn't just name our daughter Mary, or why I didn't use my grandmother's preferred name somewhere with my daughter. I have a good amount of nieces and nephews, and 2 of my nieces already have Barbara as a middle name, so I thought I'd do something a bit different. I like it, but I don't prefer it as my daughter's first name. As for my husband, he has only 1 niece, and she's already named Mary. I didn't want my daughter to have to share a name with her cousin, so that's why we tried to come up with a different way to honor his grandmother. Another group of comments I've seen have been joking why I ever thought that this would make her chuckle. My family doesn't joke around about it too much, but every now and then someone will say something along the lines of, "What do you think you're going to change your name to next?" And she would just let out a couple of laughs. This led me to believe that she was lighthearted about the whole thing. Looking back, I'm just now realizing that was only polite laughter and I don't think she enjoyed it. I never thought about it when I was little, so I went my entire life thinking she was fine with everything. I feel awfully guilty now, and I'll be sure to apologize to her for that as well once I see her again. Not the jerk, but there's a lot more to this story about why your grandma changed her name. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a dramatic reaction. You can name your kid whatever you want, and to be honest, for your grandma to make such a big deal over something like this that has zero significance to anyone but her, to the point of punishing you and your grandkid, is malevolent, childish, and downright mean. You have 2 choices. Change your kid's name to appease a woman who won't explain and won't be around long, or name your kid what you want and not have a quilt or a goodwill from your grandma. It could be that in time your grandma will settle down, but perhaps she won't ever. It's your choice, but whatever you choose, you're not the jerks. You're the jerk. Even though you didn't name your daughter after your grandmother, it feels inappropriate to choose a name that seems derived from a living family member without asking them about it first, especially as you know how your own grandmother dislikes her birth name. Well, what do you think? Should OP change her baby's name to make her grandma happy or not? Please let us know. You name your baby what you want, and anybody who throws a big deal about it, that's on them. You gotta stop appeasing these people who think the world revolves around them. I don't know what kind of issues you got, but your issues have nothing to do with what I choose to name my baby. Am I the jerk for not letting my nephew use my car for prom, but said I might let his sister use it? I, 32 male, have a nephew, Josh, who's 18, and a niece, Sarah, who's 16, and this argument came up when visiting my sister. My car is a very modified classic car, a 72 Challenger with a modern motor swap, 6-speed manual, and more mods, putting out over 1,000 horsepower. It's not a beginner driver-friendly car. Josh didn't get his license until 3 months ago, and I'm pretty sure that he messed with the numbers to take the test for the 3rd time. I've seen him drive once, and even offered to ride with him before to help pump his hours up and to continue to drive so he can feel more comfortable. Sarah goes to car shows with me and has a modified Miata that she drives everywhere. She got her license 2 weeks after turning 16 and has had it for 8 months now. She drove with me every day after getting her permit and just has that drive to drive. Before anyone says I have my favorite, Josh and I game every night, and I built him a custom PC for getting honor roll. He's amazing at tech, loves gaming, and if he decides to continue, I will be paying for his college and will offer him a job at my business, which offers specialized tech services. I've told both of them the dollar amounts I have saved up that will be for them for the future. If they want to use it for school, training, down payment on a house, travel, it will be theirs, as long as they can tell me they have a plan. I bought both of them their first cars after they got their licenses and try to keep everything as close to fair as I can with them. I was over for dinner, and Josh said he can't wait for prom and was asking if he could use my car to drive his date. I told him I wasn't comfortable with him driving my car and that I would gladly drive him and his date and even wear his suit and funny hat to be his driver. He threw a fit and said that I would let Sarah take the car if she asked. I said if she kept driving and showing the control she has, I would consider it. I told him I feel he has not been driving long enough to be able to control this car and that I would be worried for his and his date's safety. I also told him I would trust him with my PC before I'd even let Sarah play The Sims on it, and it's just how they are different people with different interests. My sister said I should have just said no, but I've always told them I will never lie to them and I'll always explain myself because they're almost adults and they deserve to hear the truth. However, I won't be rude to them. He has since not played games with me and not responded to my text. His father says that I'm the jerk. His sister said I should have just said no, but now should just let him use the car. Sarah says she would be scared to drive the car. Our parents said I should have just said no. Am I the jerk? Dude's 32, plays video games with his nephew every night, puts money away for the niece and nephew. I think it's time he grows up and finds outside interests and let the parents rent their son a supercar. Seems like a really weird situation. OP, I run my own tech company. My wife passed from cancer 4 years ago. I decided to live my life the way I want, and that includes spending time with my family. I don't drink and I don't smoke. My house has been paid off for a few years. My bills are my business, keeping the lights on and my employees paid and happy, and insurance. I'm not going to be a slave, and if I can keep them from having to slave away, I will. Update. My parents returned from snowbirding, and so we decided that they would use my house to host Mother's Day. I won't go into detail, but after being told this, I made a nice dinner for my family and had everyone over. I tried to talk with Josh, but he was still obviously upset that I did not change my mind to let him use the car. At one point, while hosting outside, I hear a thunk, and Josh's dad gets a smirk on his face. Sarah goes pale and just mutters he didn't. The family goes to see what the source of the noise was and finds Josh putting a bat away and a very obvious dent in my fender. A wave of calm comes over me and I know exactly what to do. Get in, I tell him, firmly. After a minute of this, he hops in the passenger seat and I take off. For legal reasons, I will not explain exactly how I drove my car, but the happened in Mexico crew would be proud. After we get back to my house, he's pale, and I need a new set of tires. My sister yells at me that he could have been hurt. His father is quietly drinking my beer, and my dad is trying to help Josh walk, with the adrenaline pumping through him. Sarah mutters a, "Told you so," as I tell my sister that she and her husband have to pay to fix my fender or else I'll get the authorities involved. My mother is crying upset, and the day was ruined as people packed up and left and more words were said yelled. Currently, the car I bought for Josh is sitting in my driveway. I've already fixed my fender and sent a bill to my sister, who told me to shove it and that family doesn't treat family this way. I've called my buddy who's the local sheriff and can have charges pressed. I do have video footage of him willfully damaging my property. Josh apologized for everything. The drive was the wake-up call he needed and said he would get a job to pay for fixing my car, even though his mother has told him it's my problem to deal with. He said he was being a stupid kid and needed to grow up. I told him on top of fixing my car, he now gets to take Sarah's place of cleaning my work building and garage. His car is now just my car again, and he needs to figure out all the rides he needs to keep everyone happy. He told me to come get the PC I built him, but I told him to hold on to it for now. The bill? A little over $2,000. Luckily, I had the car painted last year and still had some mixed paint with the hardener in it. Worked the dent out. I was able to replace everything that needed to be replaced, but vintage cars are not cheap to work on. Try to get me fired? Enjoy the end of your law career. I'm John. I worked in a pizza shop back when I was in college. I worked with Sarah, a vindictive lady who would stir up a lot of drama. Sarah would pick a target and then bully them into quitting. Where I'm at, college students can receive welfare if their parents earn less than a certain threshold. I was ineligible for student support due to my parents' income, even though they didn't support me and I desperately needed this job. Matt, a new hire, quit after Sarah's harassment. Sarah's attention then turned to me. Sarah would approach my supervisor and spout BS like, "Hey, Mr. Supervisor, I asked John where the snake is and he said the snake is cutting pizzas." This while the supervisor was actually cutting pizzas. She would shout at me with extreme hostility. She wouldn't warn me if pans were hot, a major sin in the kitchen. She conspired with her friends to accuse me of slacking off, even though they had never complained about me until Matt quit. This took a toll on me. My hours were cut, impacting both my financial and mental well-being. I even considered dropping out of college because I was struggling to afford rent. Sarah was illegally claiming students' welfare despite being employed by the pizza shop. You can only claim the welfare if you're unemployed. Sarah, in the first year of her law degree, was also aspiring to become a lawyer. The thing about being a lawyer is that you need to be admitted to the bar to begin practicing. The law industry is very strict. Even proven allegations of plagiarism in college would make one permanently ineligible to become a lawyer. Frankly, she was stupid for defrauding the government. There's an anonymous complaint line for welfare fraud. Most of the time, the welfare department never follows up. Occasionally, however, they would send officials to investigate. This was one of those few times they followed up. I sent an anonymous tip stating the business, her schedule, her name, and her number. I was on shift when some officials from the welfare department came in, informing us that multiple complaints were made against Sarah. I think my boss could have just told them to scram since they probably didn't have a warrant, but instead of doing that, he licked their shoes, showing them all of the CCTV footage. The officials then questioned Sarah. She panicked, confessing to everything. I felt no sympathy for her. As a law student, she should have known to remain silent. Long story short, Sarah received a suspended sentence, which would most certainly disqualify her from becoming a lawyer. She dropped out of college while I continued working at the pizza shop and eventually graduated with an associate's. I have an alright job now. Friend used me as bait for a guy she didn't tell me she liked. When I, female 18, was about a year out of high school, I started working at a restaurant in a much wealthier community than the working class one I had grown up in. I started as a hostess, then got promoted to waitstaff. After a while, I started to bond with this girl, Gretchen, female 18, who was a hostess. She relied on me to vent to and to share all of her troubles with. Her parents were not nice, only caring about money and social status. I also started hearing about how she was having trouble with infighting and backstabbing among this friend group, many of whom also worked at the restaurant. The restaurant was a place where a lot of young people from the area hung out. I felt bad for her, but I also enjoyed her sense of humor and intellect. And we shared a lot of similar tastes in music and style, so she and I became good friends. At one point, she introduced me to this guy, Chris, who was 18, that she knew. He and I instantly had chemistry, and I could tell he was very into me. He started coming around the restaurant a lot, sitting in my section, and one day when Gretchen wasn't there, he asked for my number. It felt like the friends I had always wanted were finally coming together, like my life was about to launch. All of these people lived in their parents' giant opulent mansions in this very upscale town, driving luxury cars their parents gave them, while I would slink back to my broken down Honda that I'd park in a hidden spot and drive to my family's tiny house in the working class town with its broken down pickup trucks on cement blocks in people's yards, feeling like an alien in both worlds. I was slightly older than some of my new friends, being a year out of high school, while most of them had just graduated, but felt worlds less sophisticated than they appeared to be. Anyway, I didn't really understand why she was so eager to introduce us. Why didn't she want him for herself? He was very cute. It was only later in retrospect that I looked back on the way she introduced us and realized she was using me to bait him to come around the restaurant. So he and I started to hook up. I didn't get why he wanted to be so secret about it at first, but I'll admit that he was 10 times hotter than any guy I ever dated, and I let myself get swept up into a mostly physical relationship. He asked me not to tell Gretchen because he could tell she was into him, and although I thought that was silly as she had introduced us, so obviously if she had ever had any romantic feelings for him, she was over it, but I reluctantly agreed. Not my proudest moment. Gretchen and I began to hang out more and more and became BFFs. We began to spend every free moment together. My secret hooking up with Chris felt more and more deceitful, and I cooled it down with him a little. But I was young and didn't know how to handle the situation, and I'm sure I did everything wrong. I thought that I was beginning to fall in love with Chris, but didn't like being a secret hookup, so just sort of let it continue in secret. I'll admit this wasn't smart or good. After a while, I got a job at another restaurant, as there was too much drama at that restaurant, and I could make more money at this new place and wanted to go to college. But I continued to hang out with the people I met through the first restaurant. Gretchen and I went Christmas shopping together one day at the mall and took a break to eat lunch. That's when I accidentally got a glimpse of her Christmas present shopping list as she checked it off. She had high dollar values listed next to the names of all these high status, wealthy, good looking, and cool people that I suddenly realized she was desperately trying to become friends with. $100 here, $200 there, and then there was my name, supposedly her best friend, with $5 listed next to it. It instantly made my heart sink. I don't care about expensive gifts, but it made me realize how little she valued me, with an actual dollar sign to prove it. Nobody owes me anything, but I had already spent over $50 for her Christmas gift, and I felt like a schmuck, realizing that we weren't actually best friends, and she saw me as someone to spend time with until better people came along. Among the names of her high-value people that she was desperate to become friends with, that she was willing to spend all of her parents' money to try to win over, was Chris, the guy that she introduced me to, who I was now seeing. She had $200 next to his name. I began to feel sick to my stomach. I didn't say anything to her, as I probably shouldn't have looked over at the list in the first place. But then something happened that really made my blood boil. She began to tell me how much she was in love with Chris, that she was sure he was her soulmate, that she thought about him every day, all day. If she had said even a fraction of this to me when she introduced him to me, there's no way I would have hooked up with him. I suddenly felt all kinds of emotions swirling around at once. Why had she withheld this information from me? And why was she telling me this now? I began to realize she had been using me to keep him around. Then she started going on and on about how she spent all night on the phone with him the night before, which I knew was a lie because he was with me. I sat there seething and beginning to hate her, and finally interrupted her to say, "None of that is true. He wasn't on the phone with you last night." She got this look on her face that I will never forget, instant knowing and aware that I not only caught her in her Fantasyland delusional lie, but also knowing why I knew what he did the night before. She just sat there looking into my face and me looking back at her. I relished the look of hate and betrayal that had come over her face. I gave it right back to her. You could tell that she never expected little, stupid me to betray her this way. I was just supposed to be her lapdog, always there for her with no needs or wants of my own. Friendship over. She told everyone from the restaurant about what an evil, backstabbing jerk I was to steal her man from her, and all of my friends from that job stopped talking to me. But you know what? Forget her and forget them. Okay, so friendship over, but what about Chris? How did that story end? OP. Here's what I replied to someone else. He and I stopped being friends with benefits and tried to maintain a platonic friendship after that. But he had come around, still wanting to hook up, and I did give in now and then, hate to admit it, and then eventually we just decided being friends wasn't working. I'm now married. This was a few years back. I did Google him recently, and he's also married and living in a very upscale community with his beautiful blonde wife and a tiny little house with a view of the San Francisco Bay. My Karen sister-in-law ate my dinner, so I kicked her out. My husband's sister moved in with us after she had a major argument about the baby's name. They're expecting and she's 7 months in. She's known to be picky and refuses to eat what we normally cook. We only cook her favorite food, which I can't eat. Allergies, yay. Every day at dinner, I have to figure out what to eat since she only eats food that I'm allergic to. Last night, my husband agreed that he'd cook for her, then he'd cook for us separately. I got home after a long day at work and found out that sister-in-law convinced my husband to only cook the meal she wanted and cancel on the meal he and I planned to have. I saw them eating together in the kitchen. My husband apologetically said his sister convinced him to eat with her and not cook the meal I wanted us both to have. I said it was fine, then went to order some food from the restaurant. I went to take a shower and did some work on my laptop. Then I came downstairs to find my order placed on the kitchen counter. It was open and someone ate the majority of it. I turned around and there was sister-in-law standing there saying that she woke up hungry and couldn't resist the smell that was coming out of the box. I lost it and yelled at her, asking why did she do this? But she said that she did save me some, which isn't even true because there was only some rice and dressing. We started arguing and I told her I couldn't take this anymore. I told her to pack her crap and leave first thing in the morning. She began crying and my husband got involved and defended her up and down, repeatedly saying that she's pregnant and she's eating for two basically. He suggested I go make myself something quick from the fridge and just let it go, but I refused and a bigger argument ensued. Am I the jerk for kicking her out over this? Not the jerk. And you don't have a sister-in-law problem, you have a husband problem. Don't get me wrong, your sister-in-law sounds like a spoiled, selfish, and entitled piece of work, pregnant or not. But your problem is that your husband is more concerned with her health and happiness than yours. He needs to get his priorities in the right place. Not the jerk. And honestly, I think your husband should go with her. She's not an infant herself. She can make her own food if she doesn't want what everyone else is having. And if she wants more when she's done with that, she can find a way to get it that doesn't involve depriving you of even one meal. You're the jerk. She's pregnant. Can't you show the slightest bit of compassion? Having been pregnant many times myself, I can tell you the cravings are insane. At the end of the day, we're talking about food here. It seems like you don't even care that she's pregnant, and like your husband said, she is eating for two people right now. You honestly sound jealous of your husband's great relationship with his sister. One reason my brother cut me off was because of his new wife. She thought our relationship was weird for all kinds of reasons. Newsflash, us sharing a bed when he stayed over was not uncommon at all. She said he could have stayed on the sofa instead. But if you love someone, you should have no problem cuddling with them to stay warm. Stop being a Karen. I'd give anything to just hold my brother one more time, to look in his eyes and tell him how much I love him. But thanks to his insane wife, that will never happen. Yowza! Sounds like you've got more issues than People magazine. Karen won't stop pushing her Etsy shop on our friends and family. My wife, 27 female, owns an Etsy shop where she sells homemade jewelry. She has some real talent, and the jewelry she sells is genuinely very nice and high quality. She gets a surprising amount of sales on there too and has great reviews. The issue is that everywhere we go, every conversation she has, she slips in something about her shop and tries to promote it. Talking to a friend, she'll casually mention a big sale she made or a custom order she got and not very subtly mention that she'll give her friend a coupon or something similar. Talking to our waiter, she'll mention that she has a pair of earrings on her shop that would complement their eyes. Talking to someone online, she'll somehow manage to say, as the owner of a small business, she literally cannot have a conversation anywhere without trying to sell them her jewelry. The other day was a family member's birthday, and they were having a decently sized get-together with just other family members and a few close friends. I went with my wife, and she's a pretty social person, even outside of promoting her shop, so she was quickly making conversation with my family. Of course, not even 5 minutes later, she was showing someone the bracelet that she had on that she had made, and mentioning that she sells them and talking about how, since they were family, she would happily give them a 25% discount. She probably had the exact same conversation with at least 5 other people during the 2 hours that we were there. As soon as we left, I spoke to her and said she needs to quit doing that. I told her if people were actually interested, they would ask her about her store, but not every single person she talks to wants or needs to hear about her art. She got upset and said that she just wants to spread her product and doesn't see what she's doing wrong and hasn't spoken to me since. I feel like I'm the jerk, since I will admit I had a pretty harsh tone and I could have been a lot nicer during that conversation. Plus, I get that she's just trying to sell her products, even if it gets obnoxious. Am I the jerk? There's a middle ground here, but I'm going with you're the jerk because of your delivery. She has a right, and if she's really trying to make a go of the business, an obligation to promote herself. She chooses to do it informally, person to person, which is just fine. I can see, however, that the two of you probably need to have a no business hats night where the focus is on each other. Maybe bring that up gently after apologizing to her for being the jerk. Honestly, this is the best kind of advertising. You get a nice piece of jewelry and you think of the nice lady you met at the party who will give you a discount. Win-win. No, don't try to sell me something in casual conversation. It's a step away from an MLM pitch. I'll talk about your business and you can make it clear how to buy your stuff, but don't be telling me about the discounts you're offering. Not the jerk. She's doing it over and over. I sell on eBay and I have for 23 years. I make good money, but I never bring it up unless someone asks. Then I give a few vague responses. She needs to stop. There's a great divide between business and socializing. As someone who is a server, it made me slightly uncomfortable when people try to push that stuff on me. But as an artist, I get it. But it's kind of like the vegan who has to tell everyone that they're vegan. It's annoying. You should have been nicer, but she doesn't have to tell absolutely everyone. Not the jerk. My sister-in-law has done every pyramid scheme ever invented and is constantly trying to sell me her crap. When we announced we were getting married, she tried to sell me weight loss body wraps. When my cat died, she wanted me to buy a custom water bottle she was selling with the cat paw prints on it. My bridal party, she tried to sell me kitchen gadgets. I'm not saying Etsy is a pyramid scheme, but when every conversation is about selling things, it comes off as tone-deaf and insensitive. You're the jerk. If anything, you should be proud of your wife and her accomplishments. I run a small business as well, based on eBay, and you bet your butt I tell everybody I can about it, and my husband knows if he ever tried to stop me from promoting my business, he'd be sleeping in a hotel. You sound so bitter and jealous of your wife's success on Etsy. I'm guessing you work a job you hate where your boss treats you like the little man that you are. That queen deserves so much better than a crying man-baby like you, and I hope she finds someone who will actually support her on her journey and not try to tear her down. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If you're a friend or a family member who's constantly trying to sell stuff to me, you're not a friend or family member that I want around. Reminds me of those people on social media who message you trying to tell you they've missed you. Next thing you know, they're trying to sell you something. Yeah, they're called Huns, if I remember correctly. Hey, hun, you look so beautiful. I missed you so much. By the way, have you heard of these new essential oils? I've got a great sale going on right now. I'm leaving my husband without telling him why. I found out that my husband was planning to have an affair with a woman from his company that works for another branch. He visits that branch twice a year, and she visits his twice a year. They've been flirting for 6 months, and they were going to hook up together last Friday when she was here. I sent my husband a picture of me in some new sleepwear about an hour before her plane landed, and he was supposed to pick her up. He had already told me he was working late and then going out with his colleagues for drinks and not to wait for him. I wrote to him that I was his dessert after the lobster pasta that I'm making. He loves lobster pasta. He was home within the hour. When we were together, he said he was glad that he chose to come home. Instead of working, you mean? I should hope so. Yeah, I mean, of course, he said. I don't have the energy to confront him or tell him that I know. I don't want to hear excuses and apologies. The lease is in his name because I moved into his apartment when we got married, and we still haven't found our home that we're saving for. So I don't need to worry about that. Our savings and joint accounts are easy to access and divide, and I can do that the day before I leave. I found a subcontract today for an apartment for 12 months. If I get picked, I can move October 1st already. Then I'll serve him the papers and tell him the reason is that I'm bored with our relationship and I've fallen out of love. I think it's better that way. When asked how she's sure of her husband's planning an affair or did she search his phone, it started with a lot of pop-up about hotels on our iPad. Combined with him being busy and texting more than usual, I became suspicious, so I went through his phone. They've been talking all summer long about meeting up and hooking up. She lives 3-hour plane ride away, so now I know why he was searching for hotels in our and her city. Update. I've now signed the lease. I'm so happy that I found it. I feel like I'm born again. I have felt nothing but pain and despair for weeks. Now I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm still resolute to just leave and not tell him the reason why. I think this is the only way I can cope with this pain without losing my mind or my dignity. Many asked how that would make me look. Honestly, I don't care. Those who love me unconditionally, and those who judge me, that's their problem. Update 2. I've been on high drive this weekend. No moving on Sundays, but I was fortunate to get the keys Thursday. I've been discreetly packing my clothes, and yesterday, Friday, the moving truck came and took all my stuff and my furniture that I bought to my new place. I changed my address to my parents because I don't want my husband to know my new address if he Googles it. When I was in my new apartment, it looked gloomy and so tiny. I just broke down crying, like I've postponed my tears, and now I could finally feel safe to be vulnerable. Around dinner, my husband started bombarding my phone because I left him a note that I was done with our marriage and filed for divorce. My plan was to never speak to him again, but today, after a million messages and missed calls, I folded and answered him. He was very confused and in total panic, but I just kept saying that I wasn't in love with him anymore and that I was bored in our marriage. He was confused and begged me to come home and explain. Then he started trying to find other solutions. Maybe I was bored with my job or with our apartment. Maybe we could move and start anew somewhere else. I couldn't hold my tongue and just said, "Yeah, maybe we can move to the city where the other woman lives. That would be very convenient for you." He was silent for a second, then asked what I meant. "You know, because the main office is there and you have better chances to advance in your career." Silence again. Till he said, "I don't care about my career now. I care about you. I love you and I can't lose you." He said he'd do anything to make me happy. I said the only thing he could do to make me happy was leave me alone and understand that it's over, because the sooner he realized it was over, the better. I hung up. I probably need a new phone number because I don't trust myself not answering him again. I was so disappointed in myself for talking to him when I decided that I wouldn't. My parents-in-law have called and wanted an explanation, and I just said that I wasn't in love anymore and wanted out. They're both confused. All in all, it's better than them knowing the real reasons. I'd rather have them confused than sorry for me, or worse, try to explain his behavior and ask me to forgive him. I'm way better this way. I don't think there's a need for lawyers. We don't own anything together, and we don't have kids. I've already taken my half of the savings, etc., and I never stood on the lease of his apartment. I see no reason to have lawyers. I already sent my divorce papers to court, and with or without his signature, I'll be divorced in 6 months if he signs too, in 1 to 2 years if he refuses to sign, and I submit a new application every 6 months. OP has more control than I do. I would have made it clear to everyone what he was up to. Hopefully, OP can move on without too much contact from the ex and his family. I think it's going to slowly eat her up, not getting this off her chest, and it's going to cause more issues for herself with people being confused on the why, like her in-laws. I commend her for having the courage to try to completely wall him off though. I would not have the chill to even attempt it. I would have just said, he knows why, he's just too ashamed to admit it, not my story to tell. Of course, when my ex cheated, I didn't tell anyone why we split. I didn't have to live with it for long. It became obvious when he married his affair partner immediately after the divorce. I kind of felt sorry for her. She was a young college student. I don't think she even knew he was married, and I'm not sure she ever figured out how close our divorce was to her marriage. Am I the jerk for telling the woman that I nanny for that her husband is cheating on her? I, 23 female, have been a nanny for this wonderful family for 3 years now. The family consists of mom, I'll call her A, dad, I'll call him B, and their one kid who I'll call C. I started when C was 1 month old, and at this point, they all feel like part of my family too. I decided to stick with them even after graduating from college instead of immediately pursuing a teaching career because I just love C so much. On top of that, they pay me very well. Last weekend, I was out with my boyfriend getting dinner. To my surprise, I saw B at the restaurant as well with a woman who was certainly not A. I tried to assume the best, thinking maybe it was a relative of his or something like that, but then he leaned over and kissed this woman. I was shocked and just told my boyfriend we should go somewhere else, and I pulled him out of there quickly because I did not want B to see me. This happened Saturday of last week. I thought things through that night and over Sunday, and I really didn't know what to do. A is expecting another baby with B, and I tried putting myself in her shoes. I decided that if it were me, I'd want to know that my husband was seeing another woman, so I told her on Monday morning. B is never the one home in the morning when I show up. It's always A. I walked in, took a deep breath, and just explained what I had seen. I was hoping maybe she'd tell me that their relationship was open or they were already separating, but unfortunately, that's not what happened. She immediately had tears in her eyes and was just shaking her head in disbelief, and she kept asking me if I was sure that I had seen him. I told her yes, and she left to work still crying. When she got home later, she seemed pretty emotionless and was quite cold with me. I got a text later on that evening saying that her and C were going to stay with her parents for a week or two and that she wouldn't be needing me to nanny until they got back. I haven't received any further communication from her. I thought that I was right for telling her, but my mom and a few of my friends told me that I was wrong for sticking my nose in their business. My mom even said I'll probably end up losing my job now, and I'll admit, that has me very stressed out. Now I feel like a jerk who blew up a marriage and stressed a pregnant woman out. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but you might want to start that teaching career now. You did the right thing, but you'll probably have to deal with the fallout too. Sometimes doing the right thing has negative consequences, but you sound like a good person, and keeping it to yourself would have negative consequences for your well-being. Not the jerk at all. You absolutely did the right thing, and for the right reasons. Her husband blew up the marriage, not you. You did not stick your nose in their business. He advertised his business in public, and you happened to see it. Thank goodness. Can you imagine being pregnant with your second child? You have that kid. Then a few years later it comes out that your husband was a dirtbag cheater? And then you find out that the nanny knew the whole time and didn't tell you? No way. You were right to do what you did. It doesn't sound like he was even trying to hide it. Yes, you may lose your job, especially if his income is significantly more than hers. She may not be able to afford it during and after the divorce, so don't assume there's anything personal involved here. Give her the time she noted before getting too concerned, but my advice is to sign up to substitute teach in your area in the meantime. Don't delay your future while you wait. Thank you for doing what you did. I wish someone would have done so for me back in the day. Not the jerk. I'm sure she wasn't trying to be cold with you. She was probably in shock and survival mode. The family may be disintegrating, so you may not have a nanny job anymore, but that's not your fault. You did the right thing. If I were the wife, I would want to be told. Not the jerk, but you are young and inexperienced. I've been a nanny for wealthy clients for the past 25 years. I've been a part of several different families that loved me as their own and vice versa. Out of all the families I've worked for, sadly, infidelity was part of each and every one. This is something that you learn to accept as normal when working with wealthy families. It will also be expected of you to never overstep this boundary and insert yourself into the family drama. In the end, you are there to provide them with a service, not tear their family apart. People can blame the husband all they want to, but you are the one who made the wife aware of what was going on. Your job is to be a nanny, not a private investigator or informant. If you ever get the chance to nanny for a wealthy family again, please do not make this mistake or you will again find yourself unemployed. I like to compare it to servants in a royal court. There will be all kinds of issues going on behind the scenes among the family, but as a servant, you need to stay out of it and do your job. You're there to assist the family, not tear it apart. Am I the jerk for giving my wife an ultimatum? I, 35 male, have been married to my wife, who's 37, for 7 years, and we were together another 3 before that. We had a daughter who is 5. On the outside, our marriage appears to be perfect. She and I own a nice house with a good school district, have a great kid, and both work full-time. Her job requires her to do some travel and wants her in the office 3 days a week. My job does not pay as well, but I work completely remote and spend a lot of time taking my daughter to soccer or doctor's appointments, as well as keeping up around the house. Before anyone asks, this is not a weight gain issue. I'm active and fit, and my wife is the same. For the past 4 or so years, my wife has shown basically no interest in our marriage and acts more like my roommate than partner. We basically have no romance or intimacy. When I say intimacy, I know some people jump to hooking up, but to me, intimacy means more acting like a couple. Hand-holding, kisses, cuddling, and obviously hooking up. None of those are really things my wife wants to do and makes it painfully obvious that she isn't interested. Before, she and I were very much an amazing couple. My wife also shows no interest in my life. She has forgotten important events like our anniversary and my birthday. Our last anniversary, she said she needed to cancel the dinner plans I made for the 2 of us because she had to work late on a Friday and travel for work the following week. I brought this up to my therapist, who suggested couples therapy and is willing to give some recommendations. I brought this up to my wife, who immediately shut it down, saying, "There's nothing wrong with me. I don't need therapy." I've made multiple suggestions to her for how we can possibly improve our relationship. Family vacation? Our daughter won't appreciate it. I don't see what 5-year-old wouldn't want to go to the beach for a couple of days, but maybe I'm wrong. A romantic getaway for just her and I. No, I'm too busy at work. Or, we can't just spend time together at home. Taking our daughter on a bike ride and going out to lunch on a weekend. I just want to relax. So I gave up trying to initiate anything with her and recently began looking for an out. I watched my parents in a failing marriage for a decade and don't want to put my kid through that. I talked to a lawyer and got papers ready, and I can buy a condo in town to keep our daughter in the same school district with her friends, since I can't afford our house by myself. I recently confronted my wife when our daughter was at a playdate. I told her that I'm seriously considering leaving her since I feel as though I don't matter to her, and our relationship is never a priority to her. I told her I have an exit plan, and if she doesn't make changes by the new year, I'm going to file for divorce in full custody. She and I got into a big fight where she basically told me I was manipulative and a jerk for blindsiding her like that. I told her that none of this would be an issue if she cared about us, or at least pretended to. I told her I don't want our daughter to see how unhealthy our relationship is. All of this happened yesterday. So Reddit, am I the jerk for what I said to my wife and our argument after? Edit. I have brought up my concerns about our marriage to her multiple times. Things usually improve for a short while, but are quick back to the status quo in a week or two. On counseling and therapy. I've brought up the idea of therapy and that I didn't feel as though she was there for me at several points during the past couple of years. I've tried to get her to try at least one session with me, and I'm shot down every time. I've told her my feelings several times now, and each time she says she will try harder and maybe does it for a week or two, then things go back to how they were. Could she be having an affair? It's possible she's having an affair, but she does actually go out with her friends a lot. They usually go out and get dinner once a week. Either that, or she's meeting the guy at these restaurants. Personally, I don't believe that, since I have friends in the area too, and someone might see her. Bills are paid from our joint bank account. Each of us also contributes money to a personal account that we would use for individual expenses, such as a night out. Majority of chores are done by me during the week. I can usually get away from work long enough to vacuum, do laundry, and basic stuff like that during the day. Bigger chores like car maintenance and lawn care are usually my or our weekend projects. Is she a bad mother? Why full custody? No, she's not a horrible mother. That part was definitely an overreaction on my part that I should not have said. After reading a lot of the replies and some helpful links someone posted that outline a mistreating relationship, I'll be speaking to the lawyer first thing tomorrow. I think it's time I did something for myself and my daughter. Update. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, unfortunately. My marriage is over, and after talking to my wife, I realize it has been for a long time. The day after my post, I began the divorce process with my lawyer. Everyone who said I was a jerk for saying I was going to get full custody, that is true. I was angry, frustrated, and said something I shouldn't have. We're going to split custody, with me having the weekdays and my wife having weekends. That said, everyone who said she was cheating, congratulations, you were right. She has been for around 4 years now, which is about the time that she started withdrawing from our marriage. She's been cheating with this coworker because she felt like she was not attractive after having a baby, and I was busy with work and childcare. More recently, she's begun to develop feelings for him and was considering leaving me for him, which she's now free to do. When I gave her the ultimatum, she was surprised that I was considering leaving her and thought I knew about her affair at the time. We sat our daughter down and explained that we're splitting up, but we both love her more than anything. My daughter was understandably upset and is having a tough time. I'm having to look into therapy options for my daughter and told her that she can always tell me how she's feeling. This is the hardest part of everything so far. My wife and I are going to be geographically close. I'm going to be moving into a condo in early January, and my wife is going to move in with her coworker about 15 minutes away. With the sale of our house, I'll be able to pay off a large portion of my new home. According to the lawyer, we can have everything wrapped up by New Year's if it goes smoothly, but with the holidays, I'll be happy with early January. In the meantime, I'm going to start rebuilding my life. I did not get married with the intention of getting divorced, but here we are. I'm going to work on myself and my relationship with my daughter, starting with a vacation. I'm going to surprise her with a trip to Disney this winter. It will be expensive, but I really want to make her happy and create some happy memories. I'm going to miss her on the weekends. Maybe one day I'll explain this all to her when she's an appropriate age and we can talk about it more. In the meantime, I'm going to work on myself and try to be the best version of me that I can. I don't know what the future holds, but I guess I'll know eventually. Make sure you put you and your daughter first here. You don't owe your ex anything. Yeah, she and I have talked about basically making sure shared bills are paid. All of the communication is through our lawyers. All of her issues are on her now and not my problem. Did she admit to the affair or did you find out? I found some credit card statements that did not make sense, so I confronted her. According to her, and she's a liar, so who knows, the feelings developed a couple years ago and she was not sure how to address it. I personally don't care what she feels at this point. My Karen wife demands I cook special eggs for her after I've already finished cooking. Last weekend, I, 36 male, decided that I was going to make my family, my wife who's 35, and my kids who are 12, 11, and 9, a big breakfast spread as part of the lame, according to our oldest daughter, family time that we decided to have that day. The plan was to have breakfast together, watch a movie, have lunch, and play some games as a family before we release the kids from the clutches of the, again, lame family time. So anyway, I got up early, heated up the waffle iron and the huge stovetop skillet, and went to work making waffles, scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, and hash browns. As I was finishing and the kids had plated up, my wife asked me to throw a couple of eggs over easy on for her. She's the only one in our family who can stand runny yolks. Neither I nor the kids will touch them, but she really likes them. I just told her, nah, I'm finishing up already. If you really want a couple of eggs your way and want to make them yourself, go for it. But I'm done. She responded, you're already cooking. I'm in the mood for a couple of over-easy eggs. Why can't you just throw them on for me? I refused, and it turned into way more of a quiet, bickering argument than it should have. It's been on my mind since, and on the one hand, I feel bad my wife just asked me for a small favor that wouldn't have been a big deal at all to fulfill. But on the other hand, I had made plenty of food already. My wife likes scrambled eggs too, just fine, and there was plenty of food for her to eat. Why did she need to go insisting on her special request? It was honestly a silly, petty fight, but nonetheless, I'm curious who people think was in the right. Edit. The top question asked if my wife and I routinely bicker this way. No, we don't. That's why things bothered me so much. Neither of us usually dig our heels in so much over something so minor, which is why I felt weird enough about this to ask strangers about it. Now, having said that, while there is some dissension, the prevailing opinion is that I was wrong. I accept that. I let the lazy mood I was in that morning take over when I should have just made my wife happy. But some people are making way too much out of this. My wife and I love each other and we love our kids and everything's good. We have a good family. Stop wishing bad things upon our marriage and family just because I got a little lazy one morning. I just wanted to know if I was in the wrong in this one situation, and apparently I was. I can accept that. You're the jerk, but more in a sad way. It's a small thing that would have meant a lot. Not the end of the world, but just one of those missed opportunities to give a tiny bit extra when asked. If you're honest with yourself, would she have done it for you if you had asked? It was a bid for connection from her to him. He turned it down because he felt like he had already done the connection thing already. In the psych community, there's starting to be really good research done on why couples break up, with the biggest reason being small bids for connection are rejected, thwarted, or otherwise ignored. It would have taken OP all of 2 minutes to cook wife's eggs, but in the long run, it could make all the difference between a happy couple and a divorced couple. OP, you're the jerk. Imagine going to Walmart to buy a new video game and Karen calls you a creep because you're too old to play video games. That's exactly what happens in our next video. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap and come have a listen. Karen and I are already waiting for you.